I opened a travel agency in the world of cultivation. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451. Yang Zhao was grinding the floor in the room until it was thinner, but he couldn't help. Lie down. There are so many smart people, they must have more ideas than me. After finding a reason to lie down, Yang Zhao stuffed the national emblem into his chest, put on a brand new set of Mingguang armor, and went out into the tower. Little Yang Zhao is wearing new clothes again today. How many games do you want to fight today? Now the people in the tower are already familiar with her. When they saw Yang Zhao, who had been defeated repeatedly, came in, they began to greet her. I will try to fight 15 games today. Yang Zhao was not shy and replied with a loud laugh. I was trying to fight 18 games yesterday, and today I have fought 15 games. I'm so arrogant. She has been here for half a month, and she has been defeated repeatedly, but she keeps fighting. Because she has sufficient logistics and medical support, and a strong background, no monks will kill her, which leads to her being able to go to the ring every day, and become familiar with everyone. Now she no longer asks herself to win, but only asks herself to stay in the ring for a longer time. Except for the first few days, when Shenroi accompanied her into the tower every day, and waited for the backstage show to be finished. Shenroi has seldom come these 2 days. These days, he fell in love with fishing. He followed Luan Chuangshan and Feng to go fishing in the sea every day. He didn't know why he was so enthusiastic. He fished from morning to night and sat all day without feeling the pain in his butt. As a human being, you must have some dreams. Otherwise, what's the difference between you and salted fish? Yang Zhao said something flowery and went straight to the place close to the ring. This place is brighter, there are more people gathered, and there are fewer ghosts. For Yang Zhao, it is relatively safer. She was in the air, patrolling up and down, and when she saw which ring was empty, she would squeeze in to fight. For this girl who lost, as soon as she entered the ring, the defending masters were actually quite welcoming. This is equivalent to picking up a victory for nothing, although it is getting harder and harder to win now. Yang Zhao went from lying on the ground, as soon as he entered the stage half a month ago, to being able to hold on for 1 or 2 minutes now. His progress is obvious to all the people and ghosts in the tower. So in the past 11 or 12 days, a new gambling game has been launched in the tower. Betting on how long Yang Zhao can hold on. The odds of this bet will be adjusted according to Yang Zhao's daily mental state. The main point is that the odds of the middle value are small, and the odds of the two ends are high. Because Yang Zhao can play more than 10 to 20 games a day, this results in a very fast turnover of the bet. This kind of bet, which basically has a result in 2 or 3 minutes, is the favorite of the dealer, because it saves the most time and makes the most money. Some of the dealers in the tower have their own tricks, but their greed is the same. In less than a minute, Yang Zhao was beaten out of the ring by the ringmaster. She tried hard to mobilize her spiritual power and stabilized her falling momentum in midair. The talisman array on the ring only blocks overly dangerous things such as spells and magic tools, but it does not block people. When she lost, there was a booing around her. Hey, little girl, why are you on the stage when you are not focused? You made me lose 2 taels of silver. That's right, you are not colluding with the dealer to play a fake match, are you? Yes. Why is today worse than yesterday? Obviously your heart is not here. Your eyes see your opponent, and your heart must be on your opponent. If you don't play well, aren't you cheating us to produce blood? Yang Zhao rubbed her wrist, pursed her lips and said nothing. She has learned nothing else these days, but the word turn a deaf ear. Otherwise, the empty voices below will be too depressing to one's self-confidence. Yang Zhao took out a special transparent small bottle from the Kyankan bag, pinched a blood traction technique, and the blood drops scattered on the stage quickly gathered to her fingertips, and were all put into the bottle. Then she took out a pen and simply wrote the information of this competition on the label on the bottle. This small bottle has its own anticoagulant, which can ensure that the blood will not coagulate for a period of time. There were many ghosts in the tower who wanted to buy Yang Zhao's blood, but they were all rejected by Yang Zhao. Luan Chuangshan taught her a little blood traction technique, specifically to collect her own blood scattered on the ring. Every day, she would collect more than 10 to 20 bottles. After 3 or 4 days, Yang Zhao would transport all the blood to Guo Fumin Qiang for scientific research. At the same time, Guo Fumin Qiang would also transport the newly made armor to Yang Zhao. Fearing that ghosts would steal her blood, Yang Zhao also borrowed a cap badge from Guo Fumin Qiang. It is said that this was worn by an old leader who had passed away. He was famous for his military exploits and experienced countless wars. He had a strong and colorful mark in Chinese history. This cap badge was originally collected by the descendants of this leader. After hearing that someone wanted to use it, it was given to Yang Zhao free of charge. Only such a treasure that combines the power of the country, the prestige of the nation, the thoughts of all living beings, and the awe-inspiring and murderous treasure can suppress the lawless ghosts in the Tangshan Tower, and make them dare not act rashly. This cap badge is the safety guarantee for Yang Zhao to dare to enter the tower alone, because since she had this cap badge, the ghosts in the tower rarely approached her. After finishing this matter, Yang Zhao drank some water, and ate some candy, and rested for more than 10 minutes to recover. Although she only fought on the stage for a while, such a fierce fight was a great consumption of Yang Zhao's physical and spiritual power. In order not to affect the second fight, Yang Zhao usually rested for a long time. During this time, she not only recovered her physical and spiritual strength, but also used some emergency medicine for herself. This was still the first game, and her physical and spiritual strength recovered the fastest. The later the time, the longer Yang Zhao rested. In the end, she even had to rest for an hour before she could recover to a better state. After the repair, Yang Zhao found the next empty ring again, and went up with a gun. The gamblers and ghosts gathered around cheered loudly when they won, and cursed loudly when they lost. The whole Babel Tower was always lively. When the sun set, Yang Zhao had played 16 games. One more game than planned. Yang Zhao sat on the ground, panting heavily, not caring whether it was dirty or not. A set of Shanwen armor hung on Yang Zhao's body in tatters, revealing the tattered long-sleeved sportswear underneath. Yang Zhao was really wasting clothes these days, so she had no choice but to ask Guo Fumin Qiang to send her 3 boxes of more than 100 sets of sportswear, which she would throw away when they were damaged. At least 3 or 4 sets of armor should be changed every day, and 8 or 9 sets at most. Yang Zhao didn't want to calculate the daily expenses, for fear that she would have a heart attack if she calculated them. She had never lived such a luxurious life. After catching her breath, Yang Zhao stood up with her gun and moved out of the tower step by step. In the evening, the cool sea breeze made Yang Zhao feel refreshed. Before she could take 2 steps, she was stopped by a tall black figure. Yang Zhao sighed softly. Why is this person here again? Friend Yang, are you planning to sell guns today? I will make it up tomorrow. Chapter 452. No. The evening wind blew Yang Zhao's messy hair, making her look even more embarrassed. Dao, you've been blocking me for 4 days. Don't block me anymore. I won't sell it. Dao, I said I won't buy it for free. In addition to giving you silver, I will also give you a Tuan flower. Judging from your reaction today, you may not have heard of this flower. The figure opposite was at least 2 heads taller than Yang Zhao. He was wearing a black crane cloak. The feathers with a blue glow in the black were messed up by the sea breeze. Wearing such an outfit in the middle of summer, this person's hobbies are quite unique. But you can ask around. All the foundation building cultivators like this flower. When you have this flower, you don't have to go into the tower and fight for life and death, and compete with those 200 or 300 people for 3 chances to form a pill. This Tuan flower can make you form a pill easily. This person has a pair of eagle eyes. This is not an adjective, but a real eagle's eyes. When those eyes are fixed on the target, there is no emotional fluctuation in his eyes. Dao, no matter what you say, I will not sell you the Gianna long spear. I entered the tower just to be beaten. Dao, don't worry about the matter of forming a pill. Yang Zhao leaned most of her weight on the Gianna long spear. She was tired and hungry now. Her brain was dull and her reaction was a little slow. She really didn't have the mind and patience to tangle with this person. Even if the deal between us fails, we can still be kind and part ways amicably, okay? In fact, what she wanted to ask more was whether she could get out of the way, but it seemed a bit impolite to ask directly. Of course, the more important thing is that Yang Zhao can't beat him now. If he can beat him, he will just turn around and leave without paying any attention to him. Why waste time talking to him here? Yang Zhao's refusal is obvious, but the man who wants to buy something obviously doesn't want to give up. Dao, I really want to buy this gun to accompany my grandfather to sleep. If you don't like to and flour, I have other options. How about we find a restaurant to sit down and chat for a while? Restaurant? The food made by the restaurant in Shuncheng is not as delicious as Yang Zhao's own. Besides, it is said that eating someone's mouth is soft and taking someone's hand is short. Yang Zhao waved his hand, holding the Jiana long spear, and walked around this person and started to walk back. After walking a short distance, Yang Zhao laughed softly. Yushin, I thought he bought you for his own use a few days ago, but I didn't expect that he wanted a burial object. It's not a burial object, it's food for reincarnation. The familiar voice came from behind, and Yang Zhao didn't need to look back to know who it was. The person was now standing more than 10 meters behind her and slowly following. In my Yu clan, sleeping is not death, but reincarnation. To reincarnate, you need food. The dragon bone and dragon soul in your hand are the best food for my clan. It turned out that this was not a burial object, but a tribute. Then I can't sell Yushin to you. Although he is a silent autistic patient, I have used him for almost a year and have developed feelings for him. I can't sell this thing to you and let your grandfather eat Yushin like a biscuit. Besides, she is in a critical moment in the arena. If she sells the Jiana long gun now, what's the difference between going to bed without taking money and not taking off clothes in a casino? When she arrived at the gate of her own courtyard, Yang Zhao looked back and the man had disappeared. Shenroi and the other three had not returned from sea fishing yet. Yang Zhao washed up, stuffed a few fasting pills, and began to pack up the things she had saved in the past few days. She had already saved 14 sets of damaged armor and bulletproof vests, and collected nearly 4 bottles of blood. She took out her mobile phone, pressed the Dao card behind the phone, and began to contact Guofu Minimum Kaiang. It was just right that no one was at home, so he did it quickly. Yang Zhao didn't dare to move when Luan Chuangshan and the others were at home. Guofu Min Qiang, Comrade Yang, I have good news to tell you. Our seawater single substance extraction equipment has been successfully tested. Guofu Min Qiang, a photo of a group of people and an elephant point PDF. Guofu Min Qiang, video point MP4. This video was 3 minutes long, and Yang Zhao only saw a big box floating up and down in the water. Yang Zhao was confused when he saw this information. What's the point of telling her about such academic matters? She didn't understand the things in the video. Yang Zhao, what's the point of this? Why are you so happy? Guofu Min Qiang, have you forgotten? You once bought a small magic tool made by a student named Wang Lei from Huanglangang Prefecture School. This magic tool can collect designated substances in the water. When Guofu Min Qiang mentioned this, Yang Zhao suddenly remembered it. Yes, there is such a thing. Yang Zhao forgot how much this thing cost, but it should not be very expensive. Moreover, the senior student named Wang Lei also wrote a detailed production notebook for this kind of magic tool. It records in detail how this small magic tool is made. Yang Zhao, really? That's great. Yang Zhao, can the spiritual pressure over there support our activities? Guofu Min Qiang, although the spiritual energy over here is very alert, the spiritual energy in the ocean is slightly more active, especially near the ocean currents. Our experiments are done on the ship. Guofu Min Qiang, after it can be mass produced in the future, we will install this thing in the ocean. You may not know that our neighbor who lives a good life has dumped nuclear contaminated water into the sea. Guofu Min Qiang, this thing can be used now. We plan to install a few near the coast to see the effect. Don't wait, my thoughts are a bit confused. Chapter 453, Rigorous Steps. Yang Zhao was stunned and asked again stupidly. Yang Zhao, it was leaked. How long will it take? Guofu Minimum Qiang, 30 years. Yang Zhao felt a surge of blood rushing to her head. She exerted force with her hands and heard a clang. The bed under her had fallen apart. She fell to the ground and the room was covered with dust. Have these devils had too many good days and don't want to live anymore? If they don't want to live, will they drag others to die with them? She pounded the bed twice and the broken wood chips were scattered all over the room. Fuck you. Beep 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 beep. A long paragraph of muted words came out of Yang Zhao's mouth. She gasped heavily, her eyes full of bloodshot. My parents are nearly 60 years old and they haven't seen the sea yet. Yang Zhao originally planned to take her parents to the beach to see the sea and swim after she got a job, but now everything is ruined. 30 years. Yang Zhao didn't even dare to guarantee whether her parents could live for more than 30 years. When she lowered her head again, the screen of her mobile phone was black and the metal frame of the mobile phone had been deformed by her grip. Yang Zhao changed her mobile phone. Yang Zhao, then should we make this magic weapon bigger? The bigger the magic weapon is, the larger the absorption area will be. Guo Fumin Qiang, we are not pursuing big, we are pursuing small. After all, our country's coastline is too long. Now we can't build this sea defense wall. It takes time. Yang Zhao, then what should we do? Just watch it? Guo Fumin Qiang, what we pursue is not only to use spiritual energy to charge the operating energy of this magic weapon, we also want to use electricity to replace spiritual energy so that this magic weapon can be used more conveniently in more places. Yang Zhao, but many people will forget. Guo Fumin Qiang, no, even if some people forget, we will remember for them. History will remember, and the people will remember. Everyone just needs to live their own lives. Yang Zhao, what about seafood? Guo Fumin Qiang, learn about inland seafood. _carrot. Inland seafood? Selling giant squids in Inner Mongolia? The phone over there kept ringing. Guo Fumin Qiang sent her several videos of inland seafood farming. Yang Zhao's mouth opened after watching them. This world is really broken, and the old Chinese patch it up. When the accident happened that year, they predicted the ugly faces of those people, and then started inland seafood farming. What is foresight? This is called foresight. Yang Zhao, is there anything I can help with? Guo Fumin Qiang, yes, after you form the elixir, you will probably have to stay in Leiyuan Prefecture for 2 months. This magic weapon requires several substances unique to the world of cultivation. We cannot synthesize them now, and can only obtain them through transactions with Shen Sishan. Guo Fumin Qiang, I'll trouble you next. Yang Zhao, what's the trouble? I'll just eat and drink there at most. Don't worry, I will definitely get this done. Ding ding ding. Yang Zhao, what's wrong with you? Why is this door broken? It was Shenruo's voice. She took a deep breath to suppress the violent thoughts in her heart, and when she opened the door, she saw Shenruo and the other 3 returning with a 2-meter long fish controlled by their spiritual power. Master is back, I'm fine. Oh, this is the fish you caught today. It's quite big. Do you want spicy food today? Because he couldn't stand the bland food in Shuncheng restaurant, Yang Zhao would cook a meal for himself every day. Although his cooking skills were not top-notch, children from the countryside could cook a little. Shenruo didn't ask much about Yang Zhao's other behaviors. Luan Chuangshan laughed and said, okay, get 2 more boxes of the alcohol you have. Okay. Yang Zhao quickly got 2 large ice cubes to freeze the 2 boxes of beer, and then set up a pot to cook a spicy fish stew. In the evening, while the 3 of them were drinking and eating fish, Yang Zhao told Shenruo about someone buying his Jiana long spear. He meant to buy Yushin back to eat. How could anyone want to eat weapons? Because he didn't want to eat weapons, he wanted to eat dragon bones and dragon souls. The Loyalhe clan's means of making weapons were still crude, leaving too much life for the dragon spear. If it were the human race, heh. Yang Zhao clearly felt the bracelet on his wrist tremble, as if he was frightened by this. Are the methods of the human race cruel? Luan Chuangshan took a big sip of beer and burped with satisfaction. That's not cruel, but the steps are rigorous. For example, the one on your wrist, since he has become the spirit of the weapon, how can he have his own thoughts and feelings? The correct method should be to erase his emotions, so that he can better fight the enemy with you. Otherwise, a weapon can control the owner's emotions. What's the matter? Turning a soul into an AI. This sounds a bit cyberpunk. However, turning a person into a zombie is similar to this. Speaking of which, zombies should be the favorite of capitalists, right? When the time comes, lock the zombies in the power plant and let them peddle electric cars to generate electricity every day. The capitalists will laugh like crazy. Thinking about it, Yang Zhao laughed out loud. Feng, who was eating dried nuts next to him, also asked Yang Zhao with a smile, "Do you want to return your Jiana long spear to the furnace? I'll help you. We in the Rift Roller Valley still have some tricks in this regard. Just for my face, he will give you a 50% discount on the cost." Shenroi sat at the table neither eating nor drinking, and put a cup there to pretend. At this time, he also nodded next to him. "This is indeed a good idea. Do you want to try it, Yang Zhao?" Yang Zhao touched the bracelet on his wrist and fell into deep thought. To be honest, this question is still quite attractive. After all, for Yang Zhao, Yashin's soul has always been very honest. If he can keep silent, he will not speak. There is no sense of existence for a long time. But Yang Zhao still feels a little disgusted in his heart. After all, this is also a ghost. Especially in the past half month, he came to Xianfu and encountered a ghost from the first tower again. Yang Zhao couldn't help but wonder in his heart, could it be that his physique was born yin and he was easily affected by evil? But, thank you, Senior Feng, but Yashin has been in my hands for a year and he has always been very honest and taciturn. Even if I poked something with the tip of my gun, he didn't say a word. If I raise his feelings, it would be a bit unkind. Yang Zhao felt a little embarrassed as he spoke, and this sentence sounded a bit soft-hearted. Haha, young people are soft-hearted, unlike us, who are old and have hearts as hard as stones, not like human beings anymore. Luan Chuangshan laughed and stopped drinking. It's rare to have a pure heart. Everyone is like this when they are young. Chapter 454. Injured? First win. In the next few days, the bird from the feather tribe came to Yang Zhao several times. Every time he came, he wore a new crane cloak made of unknown feathers. There were black, white, and red and green ones. The aesthetics were not unified, and the feathers were uncertain. The main one was made of feathers. Yang Zhao asked, after getting familiar with him, "Will you feel hot wearing such a cloak in this hot summer?" "It will be hot if you don't wear it, okay? Do you think we feather tribe are you humans? What are you talking about? You have become a human and wear clothes, so do you still need to wear a feathered cloak?" The other side looked disdainful. "You are a human. You don't understand the mystery." Yang Zhao was speechless. This was like a fish who is not a fish. How can you understand the joy of a fish? 12 days later, when more and more people knew about Yang Zhao, the defeated general, she somehow won a game in the tower by chance. At that time, she was stunned and looked around vigilantly, wondering if she was accidentally hit by the opponent's hidden hand and fell into some illusion. On the other side, the man who was knocked out of the ring by Yang Zhao's Fenglings who was also stunned. He stared at the stunned Yang Zhao and then used the magic weapon to protect his vital parts. He also felt that he was hit by Yang Zhao's hidden hand and fell into an illusion. For a while, the two sides were deadlocked. But the two of them were stunned, and the gamblers who were the dealers were not stunned. The dealers and gamblers surrounding the Yang Zhao Sin ring suddenly became noisy. What an upset. Oh, this little girl actually won a game. She has made progress. Ha 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 ha, 12 to 1. I didn't expect that I could make money by doing nothing. It's time to win. She has fought at least more than 400 games in the past 20 days. Even if she was beaten, she has gained experience. So many? Doesn't she get hurt every day? A new bird flying in the air asked. I had a fight 2 days ago, and my wound still hurts. Can you communicate with her? She has a backer. No matter how badly she is injured, she can get up and enter the tower the next day. I heard that she has 2 great doctors protecting her. Zionio's eyes flashed with envy. This person is really incomparable. Finally, this noise swept across the entire Tangshan Tower from Yang Zhao's ring like a wave. At this time, whether it was gambling, sitting on the bank, or going to the ring, they all stopped their actions and began to surround Yang Zhao's ring. These days, Yang Zhao is really too famous. Not only her more than 400 defeats, but also her injuries that healed in one night are the focus of everyone's discussion. At the beginning, many people looked at Yang Zhao as if she were a clown, and they threw a lot of dirty words at Yang Zhao. But as she went on the ring more and more times, the gossip around her became less and less, and more people were optimistic about Yang Zhao. Now people in the tower tease him in a friendly way when they see him. Not only because she has a backer, but also because of her spirit of never giving up. More than 400 failures not only destroyed Yang Zhao's body, but also destroyed her psychologically. No matter how well the wound is healed, it hurts only herself. Failure is natural, and it can't change the sour taste of failure. It is admirable that a person can have the courage to step into this place under such pressure. The shouts around were getting louder and louder, and Yang Zhao began to look puzzled, and her opponent's face slowly turned red. Obviously, he also realized that he had lost this game. He actually lost to Yang Zhao, a guy who had never won a game. The shame and anger that filled the sky and the field made his face flushed. For a moment, he felt that everyone's eyes were the poisonous arrows shot at him. He closed his eyes, pinched a meditation formula with one hand, and took a few deep breaths to control his mind. At this time, Yang Zhao's face was flushed with excitement, and there was a bit of shame in this excitement. Because she felt that she was lucky, and the other party did not check the almanac before going out, so she achieved the achievement of being the first person in the whole Fu to lose to her. If Yang Zhao could not win once in the future, it can be expected that the humiliation of this first book would haunt him for a long time. But this person was also free and easy. After controlling his emotions, he began to congratulate Yang Zhao. Dao Yang, you have finally achieved happiness after suffering so much today. Congratulations, Dao Yang. Yang Zhao was even more embarrassed. She hugged the Gianna long spear into her arms and bowed to this person. Dao, this is pure bad luck. I only have this chance. I won't be able to beat you next time. Guide Yang, don't be modest. You are bound to win. It's my poor training, and I underestimated my opponent. I'm convinced of my defeat this time, but I will not show mercy next time we meet. Yang Zhao's face was slightly red. Dao, you are too kind. I will definitely not be able to beat you next time. Look, these two lottery draws are actually praising each other. Hahaha, kids, they want to save face and be graceful. In this friendly atmosphere, Yang Zhao and the opponent left the tower at the same time. Yang Zhao left the tower because she had a premonition that she would lose the next game. She just wanted to taste the sweet taste of victory now, and she was not interested in the sour fruit of failure. And his opponent was just trying to avoid embarrassment. These demons and ghosts in the tower are very poisonous. Staying in there now is just asking for trouble. With the remaining power of victory, Yang Zhao met the demon from the Feather clan who intercepted him again and went to a restaurant with him to eat. What's your surname, friend? No need to be surnamed Lu. The single character is Sheng. Yang Zhao, do you have something else to ask me? Otherwise, I have clearly rejected you. Why did you come? Lu Sheng laughed while drinking. Why not? Yang Zhao put down his chopsticks. Looking at the clothes you change every day, your family must be a famous and promising master. It's really not in line with your status to come to block me every day. These days, there are obviously many more Feather Clan in Shuncheng than when Yang Zhao first came, and this person is here for a funeral, so he must have relatives around him. People live by their faces, and trees live by their skins. He comes here every day, and it must be more than just for a dragon spear. Although this dragon spear is a good thing, it is not that good. Lu Sheng leisurely picked up a chopstick of food and swallowed it. Then you underestimated the Gianna long spear in your hand. You don't know how this weapon was trained, which allowed the Gianna long spear to still have a trace of life. Needless to say, this Gianna long bone that has not lost its life is worth 10,000 or 20,000 taels of silver in the market. He said this in a casual manner. Judging from his attitude of not taking money seriously, he is at least a rich man. Ordinary people don't have this confidence and confidence. Yang Zhao frowned. So what's the matter? Can you just tell me directly? I will enter the heavenly tomb in 2 days. I need to adjust my mentality in the next few days and prepare for the battle with all my strength. If it's because of you that I can't form the pill smoothly, I will make trouble for you. Chapter 455, Win Again. Lu Sheng invited Yang Zhao to drink with him, but Yang Zhao waved his hand to refuse. He didn't say much, and just drank a glass of wine. Why don't you believe that I'm filial? Alas, it's hard to be a good person nowadays, and it's even harder to be a filial and good person. He muttered to himself, and Yang Zhao listened silently beside him without saying a word. Seeing Yang Zhao's indifference, Lu Sheng sighed and saw him stand up and take off the red and green crane cloak outside and throw it on the chair next to him. After throwing it, he began to unbutton his clothes. In broad daylight, in public, he began to take off his clothes. It's really a different culture and education. Before Yang Zhao finished complaining in her heart, a smell of rust got into her nose. After a while, she knew the source of the rust. After taking off his clothes, Lu Sheng was wrapped in circles of white bandages, and a little blood had seeped out of the bandages. He untied the bandages on his body, and a big hole appeared on the lower part of his pale left chest, a big hole that was ventilated and transparent. The big hole was the size of Yang Zhao's fist, and blood was gushing out. When the wind blew through the hole, it made a humming sound, and the edge of the wound trembled slightly in the wind. Yang Zhao took 2 steps forward, glanced over there, and quickly looked away. Sure enough, the wound could see the bright red internal organs wriggling inside Lu Sheng's body. The people sitting in the hall looked at Luan Chuangshen's appearance and couldn't help whispering a few words. However, the cultivators were knowledgeable after all. They discussed a few words here and then turned the topic to other places. It seemed that such a medical miracle standing in public was not something worth paying attention to. Yang Zhao poured himself a glass of cold water. Are you looking for me to treat your injuries? That's right and that's not right. I really want to buy the Jiana long spear from you. It's not fake, but the treatment of injuries is also real. He saw Yang Zhao's evasive eyes, and a smile appeared in his eyes. My injury can't be cured by ordinary doctors, so my elders wanted to ask senior Luan Chuangshen to come and treat me, but Luan Chuangshen was busy with something, and he was nowhere to be seen for nearly 2 months. Yang Zhao looked away and couldn't help but touch her nose when she heard this. In the past 2 months, Luan Chuangshen has been forcing her. How could he have the energy to care about others? Yang Zhao, if you meet him on the island, why don't you just go and ask him? Why do you have to trouble me? Luan Chuangshen slowly bandaged himself. Because I can't get close to the 3 seniors. Basically when I see them and want to get close, the 3 of them have disappeared. Every time I see them like this, no matter how stupid I am, I know that he doesn't want to see me. Yang Zhao raised his eyebrows. So you took a roundabout way to save the country? Curved to save the country? Lu Sheng slowly smacked these 4 words in his mouth. That's exactly what I meant. I wonder if brother Yang can help me. If you help me, I can let you buy a Tuilan flower. You should know that this thing is in short supply. Even if you have more silver in your hand, you can't buy it. Yang Zhao only believed half of this. As everyone knows, the reason why most things are in short supply is that the silver is not enough. Money can make the devil push the mill is not just a joke. You have found the wrong person in this regard. Yang Zhao took a sip of tea to suppress the nausea in his throat. I'm just a patient of senior Luan Chuangshen. I can't make decisions for him, nor can I introduce you. However, 10 taels of silver for a true news. Do you want to listen? Lu Sheng slowly put on his clothes. What news can be worth 10 taels of silver? Yang Zhao, in 2 days, senior Luan Chuangshen will enter the heavenly tomb with me. Lu Sheng paused while putting on his clothes, and then he took out a silver ingot from somewhere and put it in front of Yang Zhao's table. Okay, I'll buy this news. As he said that, he put on his clothes and put on his crane cloak and called softly, little brother, check out. Okay. When he returned to the courtyard, Yang Zhao waited obediently for Shenroi and the other 3 to come back from fishing. When he saw them, Yang Zhao first told Luan Chuangshen about Lu Sheng's matter. No matter what, this matter must be informed to the person involved. Oh, now that you mention it, I have some impression. Luan Chuangshen rubbed the fishing rod in his hand and said, but he is not a good boy, and his injuries are not so serious that he must use me. Let's put this matter aside for now. You don't have to worry about it. What you have to do now is to stabilize your mind and make full preparations for the formation of the elixir. Next, Yang Zhao went on the 3-day arena again. On the first day, many people in the tower laughed and congratulated Yang Zhao for winning a game yesterday, and Yang Zhao smiled and accepted it all. She understood that the reason for this situation was that almost all the monks regarded her victory as an accident. After all, in the past half month, all the champions in the tower who had been on the stage had defeated Yang Zhao, with only one exception yesterday. But the probability of 1 over 400 was too small, and it was more like an accident. Losing to Yang Zhao was pure bad luck. Everyone knew and admitted that Yang Zhao had made rapid progress in recent days, and it was getting harder and harder to fight her on the stage. But everyone believed that Yang Zhao's progress would not pose a threat to them, at least he would not beat them. She only played 13 games, and won another game in the 5th game, which was like poking a hornet's nest. From then on, everyone began to be ruthless to Yang Zhao. In just 2 games, she was stabbed with a hole in her shoulder. This is God watching me laugh at the big hole in Lu Sheng's body, so he gave me a taste of it. It's not the fault of those champions for being ruthless, it's really too embarrassing to lose to Yang Zhao. For example, the first person yesterday, even if he behaved very gracefully when he lost, it could not erase the fact that he lost to Yang Zhao, a low-level figure in the Tower of Babel. Now the champion has disappeared, and no one knows where the cat has gone. And the second person who lost to Yang Zhao had already hidden in the tower with a red face. No one wants to be a laughingstock. The whole Xianfu is too small, with only a few hundred people. There are not many cultural and entertainment activities. A joke can be spread for half a year, and once you lose face, the whole city will lose face. Unless you don't meet anyone, everyone will know your embarrassing things. On the second day, in 11 competitions, Yang Zhao met 2 feather tribes and won 4 games. On the third day, he won 4 games in 10 competitions. After 3 days, Yang Zhao's self-confidence soared. Even though his injuries were much more serious than before, it couldn't stop his high spirits. In the next 2 days, Yang Zhao followed Shen Ryu to go sea fishing to cultivate his body and mind. On the 6th day, Yang Zhao, accompanied by Shen Ryu, Luan Chuangsheng and Feng Yu, set out for the legendary Heavenly Tomb. Sorry, I fell asleep yesterday and forgot to update it in the morning. Sorry. Chapter 456. Yang Zhao had always thought that the Xianmu magic weapon should be a big cover, covering an area for use as a cemetery. But it turned out not to be. Yang Zhao and his group flew upwards under the leadership of several elders and disciples of Xianfu. The higher they went, the colder it was, and the sparser the vegetation became. Soon they saw the snow line. They did not stop, but kept going up. Seeing this scene, Yang Zhao could not help but mutter to herself in her heart, with this temperature, who wants to stay here after death and become an ice sculpture? According to her traditional concept, she wanted to stay in a place with green mountains and clear waters after death. Or she could be bolder and choose to be buried at sea, which was also a kind of romance. Maybe she could meet Premier Zhao after death, which was a bit beautiful. But she was not happy to let him stay on the top of the mountain as a big ice sculpture. As the mountain peaks got higher and higher, the birdsong became more and more. Yang Zhao looked up and saw several large flocks of birds circling in the sky. These flocks of birds were circling and chirping in the sky, dark and dense, with at least several thousand of them, which made people's scalps numb. She had only seen this grand spectacle of thousands of birds gathering together on TV. As the group walked up, they finally saw a large ice and snow canyon at the top of the mountain. Everyone, that's the entrance to the Heavenly Tomb. Let's go over there. Facing the howling cold wind, they came to the entrance of the canyon. The surroundings were covered with ice and snow, a vast expanse of white, and there was nothing except the canyon in front. Where is the Heavenly Tomb? In the canyon? Yang Zhao was a bit rude and asked without understanding, do we have to enter the canyon from this point? Why not fly directly from the sky to the canyon? My friend, good question. Not many people entered the tower today. At least there were only 8 people following the Xianfu people, and Yang Zhao and her group accounted for 4 of them. So when she spoke, the person leading the way in front heard it. The entrance to the Heavenly Tomb is set at the entrance of the canyon. You can't get in from anywhere else. The door is here. The leader pointed forward casually, and Yang Zhao looked over eagerly, but there was no feathers, just snow. Oh, no, there are feathers. There are too many birds in the sky, and there are already bird feathers on this snow. Yang Zhao felt the back of his neck was frizzy, so he called the bird in the sky, who had lost control of his sphincter, and gave her a fragrant mask. Lu Zeng, the leader of Xianfu, was the one who received the money from Yang Zhao and his friends. He took the money and arranged the follow-up. Lu Zeng landed on the snow and stood still, then raised his head and called out to the sky. Hello, Taoist Yu, Taoist Lu, Taoist Tong Yu, please come down, I'm going to open the tomb. The call was clear and far away on the top of the mountain. Then, a few sharp bird calls came, and in the blink of an eye, Yang Zhao's eyes blurred, and found that there were a few more people in front of him. Yang Zhao saw an acquaintance at a glance. Lu Sheng was wearing a crane cloak with orange on the top and navy blue on the bottom, and he followed a little old man obediently. The old man was skinny, hunched over and short. Lu Sheng stood behind him like a pillar, and it was hard not to be seen. Yang Zhao quietly winked at Lu Sheng, which meant, you see, these 10 taels of silver were not wasted. Lu Sheng also winked at Yang Zhao, as a thank you. Lu Zeng greeted the people who came down from the sky, and didn't say much, let alone act as a middleman, to introduce these people to each other. He directly talked about the precautions. The heavenly tomb not only bears the elders and disciples who died young of Xianfu, but also many predecessors of the Feather Clan. Please be careful after entering the tower. Do not touch, dig or take anything randomly, and do not disturb the peace of the deceased. If you disturb the eternal sleep of the ancestors, don't blame Xianfu for being ruthless. Don't worry, I entered the heavenly tomb to die, and I don't care about others. What this predecessor said is that we enter the tower to form pills, not to make enemies. Lu Zeng nodded with satisfaction. He adjusted his direction, muttered to himself, and bowed respectfully to an empty space. Then he took out a small flag from his arms and threw it into the air. He pinched his fingers and chanted a spell with one hand and said softly, open. Only 2 clangs were heard in the dark, and then more like the sound of a rusty door being opened. The sound became louder and louder, and gradually, the snow on the cliff showed signs of being shaken off by the mountain. The key is to only hear the sound, but not see the door. The sound of the door opening spread throughout the mountain, but the door was invisible and untouchable. Where is the heavenly tomb? Seeing this phenomenon, Yang Zhao hid behind Shen Ryu again, shrinking her body, trying to let the figure of her master cover her completely. Master Lu raised his hand politely. Everyone, please follow me into the tomb. Remember, you must follow our footprints. Don't step on the wrong traps, it will be embarrassing. Master Lu said and led the disciples of Xianfu to go first. Yang Zhao followed Shen Ryu, and some people followed their footprints. After a while, the footprints were stepped on a little bigger. Chapter 457, Hot Spring Dan. The group had not walked a few steps when the scenery in front of them changed instantly. The originally snowy canyon turned into a valley with green trees and red flowers. The fragrance of flowers filled the air, and it was warm. The sound of clanging and clanging came, and Yang Zhao looked up and saw large iron chains across the sky intersecting in the air, densely packed like a large net covering the entire sky. Where is this cemetery? Why can't I see it? There is nothing else in the entire valley except grass, trees and iron chains. There is no tombstone or cemetery in sight, and Yang Zhao secretly doubts in his heart. Could it be that the mountains on both sides of the valley in front of him are tombs? Yang Zhao had to doubt it. After all, the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huan looked like a mountain from a distance. Everyone. Master Lu stopped and turned to look at the people following him. This is the Heaven's Tomb. According to the rules, I will not interfere with the affairs of the Feather Clan. Fellow Taoists of the Feather Clan can act on their own. Several members of the Feather Clan bowed and said goodbye to Master Lu, then turned into giant birds and rose into the sky. After turning a few circles, they disappeared. Lu Sheng was also in the group that flew away. After seeing those people off, he turned his gaze to Yang Zhao. Fellow Taoist Shen, fellow Taoist Luan, fellow Taoist Feng, and little friend Yang, follow me. I will take you to the place where the elixir is formed. Under the leadership of Master Lu, Yang Zhao and his companions came to the top of the mountain, where there was a group of hot springs. There were more than a dozen hot springs of various sizes on the top of the mountain. Iron chains hung from the sky and spread into the hot spring water. There were at least one iron chain in each hot spring, and as many as 7. White smoke rose slowly, and the entire mountain top was shrouded in smoke, full of fairy air, and with a strange smell. Fellow Daoist Shenryu, these hot springs are the places for forming an elixir. These hot springs are full of spiritual vein water, which can help young friend Yang form an elixir. It is said that spiritual vein water is a rare spiritual water in the world of cultivation. It has the effect of cleansing the flesh of cultivators to help people form an elixir. Its origin is unknown. Of course, it may also be that this kind of knowledge is not circulated among the public. Master Lu pointed to the hot spring and introduced it. Do you see those soul-inducing chains? The more chains there are, the worse the quality of the spiritual vein water. But conversely, the more chains there are, the milder the spiritual vein water is. Please choose carefully. The better the quality of the spiritual vein water, the easier it is for Yang Zhao to form an elixir. The milder the spiritual vein water is, the more stable Yang Zhao's mind will be when forming an elixir. This is a double-edged sword. If you want to get something, you must give up something. Luan Chuangsheng and Feng discussed it again, and suggested that Yang Zhao choose a hot spring with better quality. Your foundation is not solid. The cultivation you have is all forced upon you by us. It is of poor quality, and may not be enough to help you form a pill. Yang Zhao walked to a nearby hot spring, squatted down, and put her hand into the spring water. The spring water was a little hot to the touch. There seemed to be small insects in the water, biting her flesh with their sharp mouths. It felt painful and itchy. She stood up, and changed to another hot spring, reaching in to feel it. The 4 foundation building cultivators who had been following Yang Zhao and his group in silence, and had little presence were also enlightened when they saw Yang Zhao's actions. They followed her example, and looked for the hot spring that they could accept the most. Including Yang Zhao, there were a total of 5 people who entered the hot spring to form a pill, and there were more than 10 hot springs, which were enough for them. Besides, there were 4 cultivation masters such as Shenryu and Lu Zhenren sitting on the scene, so they did not dare to argue and attract attention because of the hot spring. And when is it safest? Of course, it is safest when no one is paying attention. Otherwise, you never know when someone will pour some water into your hole. This is entertainment for people, but it is a disaster for ants. After a while, Yang Zhao tried several springs. Yang Zhao stood up and shook the water off his hands. It's okay, I can bear it. I can choose the ones with the best quality spiritual vein water. She has not been feeling well these days. Most of her meridians are destroyed, and her spiritual power cannot flow. She can't even fly at a snail's pace. Her strength has been increasing, but it is just brute force. Without spiritual power, her strength has lost a lot of leverage. Because her spiritual power is not flowing smoothly, she can only use the simplest spells, incantations, etc., and she can't even inject a large amount of spiritual power into the Jayana long spear in a short time. Feng Lingsu has lost its original flexibility in her hands. In the past, she could control the 18 shields to fly up and down, and it was only a matter of her mind whether to defend or attack. Now she can only treat it as a sandbag and throw it out to hit people. Yang Zhao has been very depressed these days. Well, come and eat the Kingshan pill. Feng took out another pill from his arms and put it in his palm. This pill has the function of protecting spiritual consciousness. Yang Zhao took the pill and took off the coat and pants he was wearing. He was wearing a white shirt and shorts for summer. Shenryu next to him looked away and took a few steps back. Seeing that everyone had verified it, Master Lu began to explain in a low voice how to connect in the water of the spiritual vein. You enter the hot spring and use the spiritual chain to bind your hands and feet so that you can form a pill. This spiritual chain can connect you to the spiritual energy in the world so that when you cut off the order, you will not be insufficient in spiritual power due to the pull of the spiritual energy vortex. After all, some people are highly gifted, and the spiritual energy vortex is larger, so they can easily take away the spiritual energy near others. Yang Zhao felt in the water of the hot spring and found that there were indeed handcuffs and leg cuffs under the iron chain. Do you have to tie your hands and feet? Can't you hold them in your arms? This question made Master Lu stunned. People who have formed pills near the Cheyenne Mu have always been tired of the hardships of cultivation. When facing him, the great senior, their attitude is always very sincere and gentle. Few people questioned him like Yang Zhao did. We haven't tried this, mainly because it's not good to take off all clothes in public, and these spirit chains can better introduce spiritual energy to the cultivators when they are in contact with human skin. It's more convenient to fix these chains on the hands and feet. Yang Zhao slowly buckled the material on herself. She has been law-abiding for decades, and she didn't expect that one day she would use this thing. Chapter 458. Everyone sat down in the hot spring. Master Lu made hand gestures and chanted a spell. Runes rose from the ground and reached the sky, separating Yang Zhao and the others who were trying to form a pill. Lu and Chuangsheng and Feng were once again covered in a hot spring with Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao felt that the surroundings suddenly became quiet. It was a complete silence, without even the sound of the wind. The key to forming a pill is to be quiet. Only when people are quiet, breath is quiet, and the world is quiet, can you pass the level without distraction. Only when you pass the level, can you form a pill. The Heavenly Tomb only gave an opportunity to form a pill, but it did not mean that you didn't have to work hard to form a pill. Lu and Chuangsheng stuffed a small piece of paper into Yang Zhao's hands. Here, this is from your master. Yang Zhao took the note and felt a little strange. What can't be said in person? Why do you have to write a small note and have someone pass it to her? She opened the note and saw the big words written in traditional Chinese characters on it, and her face became a little strange. No wonder she wrote a small note. Such a childish remark was indeed a bit hot to the mouth. Moreover, Yang Zhao doubted whether this statement would work or not. Perhaps Shen Roi herself also doubted it, so he could not tell her in public, so he gave her a small note. Thinking about it, Yang Zhao stuffed the small note into his clothes on the shore. Lu and Chuangsheng began to explain the precautions to Yang Zhao, and Feng was preparing treatment equipment. The most important protagonists were of course those cute dekai insects. You don't have to worry about the Dan formation, and you don't have to worry about the treatment. From beginning to end, the most important thing for you is to ensure that your mind is clear. The rest is our job. After the Dan formation, in order to ensure that you have enough spiritual power in your body to treat injuries, we will have the action of breaking the Dan. This action has a great impact on people, so you must be mentally prepared in advance. Yang Zhao nodded while taking out a large speaker MP3 from his clothes. I understand. The treatment of injuries all depends on the two doctors. Okay, you close your eyes and rest. We'll take care of the rest. Yang Zhao stretched out her hand and turned on the MP3. The song resounded through the small hot spring. Rise up, people who don't want to be slaves. Build a new great wall with our flesh and blood. The song was majestic and powerful. It was recorded by Yang Zhao in the military camp to enrich the country and strengthen the people. Metaphysics requires full buffs to feel safe. What Yang Zhao wants now is a sense of security. This song is a bit tragic. Feng, who was playing with live insects, muttered again. Yang Zhao raised his thumb. Of course, our national anthem is very beautiful. Okay, don't be distracted. Hurry up and enter a state of meditation. Yang Zhao closed her eyes and calmed down, enduring the spring water gnawing at her skin, and gradually her mind was free of distractions. Suddenly, she felt a large amount of spiritual power pouring into her body from her wrist. This spiritual power was like a wolf entering a flock of sheep, directly stirring up the lazy and stagnant spiritual power in her body. Chased by this spiritual power, the spiritual power in Yang Zhao's body, which was like a pool of stagnant water, began to work and gather. It whizzed past the places with veins, and rushed directly through the places without meridians, and finally gathered in Yang Zhao's danshan. As the speed of the spiritual power became faster and faster, Yang Zhao's meridians began to twitch. It hurt. Yang Zhao soon forgot the pain outside, because all kinds of horrible scenes began to unfold in her mind, forcing her to open her eyes. From the various insects and snakes she was afraid of, to the death she had always been afraid of, to the scene of her killing. Scenes flashed in her mind like slides. The regrets, fears, resentments, frustrations, grievances in the past. Things were suddenly made into movies, and they were presented one by one in her mind, and Yang Zhao just wanted to yell a few times to vent her emotions. No, 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 calm down, calm down, calm down. Yang Zhao gathered her scattered thoughts. Listen to the music, listen to the music, listen to the music. Damn, little notebook. No, listen to the music, listen to the music, listen to the music. At this moment, Yang Zhao felt a faint thunder flashing in her ears. Before she could hear it clearly, a sharp pain spread from her abdomen to her whole body. She felt that countless steel needles suddenly grew out of her body, piercing her body into a piece of meat paste. Ah! With a scream, Yang Zhao's whole face turned pale, and her face was covered with beads of sweat. Her hands and feet began to struggle subconsciously. Hold it. Luan Chuangshan cast a spell to stop Yang Zhao's moving watch, and Feng was concentrating on cutting a small cut on Yang Zhao's body, sending the insects to the wound, watching them crawl into her flesh and blood little by little. Both of them were good at treating injuries. They had seen many patients, and would not neglect their actions, because of the patient's screams. At this moment, Yang Zhao felt someone holding a red iron stick, and poking it into her meridians little by little, causing her to tremble all over. Then, another sharp pain rose from her danshan, drowning Yang Zhao like a tide. Keep your mind focused. A scolding broke into her mind, scaring Yang Zhao. How could time pass so slowly? In Yang Zhao's eyes, every minute and every second seemed longer than a year. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 459. The wind in the heavenly tomb was getting stronger and stronger. Large patches of dark clouds were gathered together by the wind. After a while, snowflakes actually fell on the green grass. Among the snowflakes, a few scattered black feathers were circling in the air. There were a few birds crying in the sky. Waves of sorrow spread from afar to the hot springs, and finally permeated the entire heavenly tomb. The young monks were in the midst of it, and had the urge to cry. Except for Yang Zhao and the others who were still immersed in the Dan formation, and knew nothing about external affairs, Shenroi and Lu Zhenren all bowed, and said goodbye in one direction. The departure of the great predecessors of the Feather Clan caused a strange phenomenon in the heavenly tomb. After a cup of tea, the wailing gradually subsided. After a while, a large black bird flew straight from a distance to the sky above the hot spring. The big bird circled in the sky for a few circles, and dived down head first. It was Lu Sheng. He folded his wings, and transformed into a human form, and his inhuman eagle eyes were filled with sorrow. Junior greets Senior Lu. Thank you Xianfu for letting my grandfather rest in peace. Master Lu accepted his salute. You, child, should be patient and docile. Thank you Senior. Lu Sheng stood half a step behind Master Lu, his eyes fixed on Luan Chuangsheng, and in a moment, he naturally shifted his gaze to look at Yang Zhao in the hot spring. At this time, Yang Zhao's hands and feet were fixed with chains, and her body was imprisoned and unable to move. Silver needles were pierced into her body, and colorful silk threads gathered in Luan Chuangsheng's hands. Luan Chuangsheng had to rely on these silver needles and silk threads to assist Yang Zhao in circulating spiritual power to form a pill, and at the same time he had to pay attention to whether Yang Zhao's mind was clear or not. Feng took a small knife and cut a small incision in Yang Zhao at the right place to help those decay insects quickly enter Yang Zhao's body to lay eggs. This process was not smooth, because there would always be bugs that were a step slower or faster to reach the place they were supposed to be, but because of the wrong timing, they were dispersed and killed by the spiritual power. Feng could only use a knife to cut a small incision on Yang Zhao again, and send these bugs in. Cutting again and again, traces of blood slid into the hot spring, dyeing the spring water scarlet. In addition to sending the bugs, he also supervised the work of breaking the pill. Whenever the time was right, he would put his hand in Yang Zhao's danshan and break the new pill that had just formed, so as to prevent the golden pill from snatching spiritual power and delaying the treatment. Breaking the pill was a very painful thing. Under such a double attack, Yang Zhao's face was pale and his brows were furrowed, and his lips were almost bitten. Bursts of thunder floated faintly above Yang Zhao's hot spring, but they dissipated the next moment after the pill was broken. Gathering and dispersing again and again, the thunder became louder and louder as Yang Zhao broke his dan again and again, as if it was angered by something, but it passively dispersed without you using your ability. If the thunder had thoughts, it would be so frustrated that it would vomit blood at this moment. At this time, lightning flashed above other hot springs. Someone had successfully formed a dan. However, this place is the Heavenly Tomb, a place of its own, and even the thunder tribulation of forming a dan is much smaller than that outside. The newly entered giant and stage cultivator did not care about the weakened thunder tribulation at all. He threw out a magic weapon to disperse the tribulation cloud, put on his clothes, and came to the shore to thank Master Lu. Fortunately, the runes around the hot spring blocked it, so the small tribulation thunder did not disturb others from forming a dan. The success of forming a dan is like a chain reaction. After the first one, there was the second one. Within half an hour, the other 3 also formed a dan and successfully landed on the shore. Now everyone's eyes were focused on Yang Zhao. There was no day or night in the Heavenly Tomb, and light snow was floating. The red spring water enveloped Yang Zhao, who was already distracted. She didn't know who she was, where she came from, or what she was doing. She was surrounded by mountains of blood, corpses, and broken bones. The huge statue opened its eyes mercifully, gently calling her to return to its warm embrace. She felt vaguely that someone had hit her on the head with a stick, and the shrill shouting and cursing came from afar, making her a little irritated. She knew vaguely that she had forgotten an important thing, but she was too annoyed to care. If she forgot it, then forget it. What's there to think about? Her homeland was still calling her. She didn't want to do anything else now, but just wanted to sleep at the feet of the warm statue. That was definitely a great thing. Suddenly, someone hit her head again, hard, and this time it made her head swell and hurt, and she saw stars. A loud shout came from far away, and she couldn't tell what the shouting and cursing meant. She just felt a huge noise that made her flustered. Chapter 460. The thunderclouds in the sky were getting bigger and bigger, and lightning flashed from time to time. The rune formation next to the hot spring had long been removed. Luan Chuangsheng and Feng Yaozhe moved to the side of Shen Ruoyu, staring at the thunderclouds in the sky and chatting leisurely. Luan Chuangsheng got a handful of nuts from somewhere and started eating. When do you think Yang Zhao can get through the inner demon tribulation? Feng Yaozhe also looked up and said, I don't know. It's not easy to get through. Although Yang Zhao's cultivation has already formed a pill, it was forced up by us old guys. She lacks time to hone her state of mind. It's not easy to get through the inner demon tribulation. At this time, Yang Zhao sat cross-legged in the scalded hot spring with her eyes closed, motionless. Shen Ruoyu turned the silver conch and looked up for a while, then turned around to face Master Lu. Dao Lu, I have an unwelcome request. I wonder if you can help me? Master Lu turned around and said, what's convenient or inconvenient about this? Dao Shen, just say it directly. It's 10,000 taels of silver. After all, they have some friendship. Shen Ruoyu has been trapped in the hot spring with Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao may not be able to complete the tribulation within 1 or 2 days. I want to move her out of the Heavenly Tomb. Yang Zhao's inner demon tribulation this time was violent, and the smell of blood and the smell of the dead soul was quite strong. As time went on, the inner demon tribulation revealed more and more information. This change has attracted the attention of some beings in the Heavenly Tomb. Shen Ruoyu didn't want anything to go wrong when Yang Zhao was going through the tribulation. His hands were itching to move, and he wanted to rub a thunder spell to warn the uneasy existence in all directions. The dead should just die honestly. Why are you looking around? But this is not the territory of his Yunayang temple after all. Shen Ruoyu had to respect the other party. Master Lu was a little puzzled. It was good for Yang Zhao to go through the tribulation in the Heavenly Tomb. Because of the existence of the Heavenly Tomb, both the Thunder Tribulation and the Inner Demon Tribulation were much weaker than outside. Yang Zhao's inner demon was difficult to get through in the first place, so wouldn't it be even more difficult to get through once he went out? Is it a bit? Before he finished speaking, he seemed to hear some noise. He frowned and glanced around. He immediately understood the purpose of Shenroyu's actions. After all, Lu Zhenren was a living person, and he was not as sensitive to the dead as Shenryu. Okay, I'll cast a spell to send her out. As he pinched his fingers and chanted the spell, a little bit of spiritual light flashed in his hands. In the blink of an eye, night fell on the world. The sound of wind, insects and waves suddenly flooded into everyone's ears. Looking forward was a towering mountain, and behind was a cliff hit by the surging sea water. In the dark night, a thundercloud gathered above everyone's head. Yang Zhao's MP3 with a large battery was still working hard. The blood in my heart is boiling, and I must fight for the truth. The old world will be destroyed. Slaves, get up, get up, don't say we have nothing. The volume was originally quite loud, but as soon as it changed places, it was squeezed by other noises to spread the space, and the volume instantly became smaller. Master Lu dispersed the spells in his hand and turned to look at the 5 people following him, including Lu Sheng. It's getting late. You can go into Shuncheng and rest for a while. Don't watch the fun here. Even if you want to watch the fun, don't watch from behind me. I have to protect you if something happens. The 4 cultivators who had just formed the elixir looked at each other and said goodbye to Master Lu. They had no reason to watch Yang Zhao's tribulation. Besides, they had just formed the elixir today, so they should find a quiet place to rest and consolidate their cultivation. Lu Sheng didn't leave. Friend Yang and I don't know each other without fighting. I have to see that she is safe today before I can feel relieved. Master Lu didn't force it. Lu Sheng was not from their Fu. He didn't care what the other party's purpose was. As long as it didn't cause trouble for Fu, he didn't want to care. Master Lu turned around and said goodbye to Shenryu, Lu and Chuangshen and others. He left one person here to guard and flew away with a few little disciples behind him. The thunderclouds in the sky were getting bigger and bigger, so someone had to be left here to watch, so that if anything happened, they could call the sect in time. Now, only Lu Sheng, Shenryu and the other 5 were left. In the long night, Lu Sheng wanted to speak again, but found that he couldn't open his mouth. He knew in his heart that this was the attitude of Dr. Lu and Chuangshen. Seeing that the sky was about to dawn, Lu Sheng turned around and turned into a big bird and flew into the forest. Their feather tribe did not live in Shuncheng when they came to Fu, but lived in the forest on this island. After a while, he brought a few feather tribesmen and flew back with things. Putting the things on the ground, Lu Sheng and the others turned into human bodies. The juniors have prepared some special food and drinks of our feather tribe. The 3 seniors have been guarding for such a long time, and brother Yang can't finish it for a while. The 3 seniors, would you like to give them a taste? When he said that, the Yi people he brought had already set up the table neatly, and the table was set with wine and food. Shenryu and Feng were silent and motionless again, just looking at Lu and Chuangshen. It was just a meal, and it didn't matter whether they ate it or not at their level of cultivation. It mainly depended on whether Lu and Chuangshen would accept this flattery. Lu and Chuangshen seemed to have not heard anyone talking, and only looked at Yang Zhao, who was trapped in the inner demon tribulation, with interest, without even giving Lu Sheng a glance. Lu Sheng didn't feel embarrassed, and he put away the food after no one ate it. At the next meal time, he brought people to set the table for food. This wait lasted for 3 days. Chapter 461, Pill Success. Zhao, what are you doing? Why aren't you home so late? Yang Zhao turned her head and recognized that it was her father. Father Yang had a smile in his eyes and was in high spirits. He stood there and waved to Yang Zhao to hurry over. Yang Zhao looked at him greedily for several more times, but I didn't stop. Yang Zhao was running away. She was in a sea of blood and corpses, in a sky full of blood, running hard to a place far away from the statue. The blood mixed with the soil stuck to Yang Zhao's feet like glue, hindering her escape and pulling her to stop. She felt that she had been running for a century, but when she looked back, she could still clearly see the compassionate expression of the statue. The statue was still so close, and there were still so many corpses. She looked sluggish and staggered, feeling that everything was laughing at her overestimating her own abilities, and laughing at her wishful thinking. But Yang Zhao didn't dare to stop. Once she stopped, she would become an animal that fell into a swamp and be swallowed by the corpses and blood under her feet. If it weren't for the vague singing that was still inspiring her, if it weren't for the fear of death that was spurring her on, she might have chosen to lie down. It was really too tiring. Yang Zhao was not only physically tired, but also mentally put a lot of pressure on her. How can anyone be healthy? Who makes us wander? Who makes us flee? Who makes our country lose? Who wants our nation to perish? Come. Let's not think about ourselves. Let's not care about our own escape. Yang Zhao sang along while running mechanically. The chorus of thousands of soldiers was majestic and magnificent, providing her with a rare sense of security and support in this weird world. She always felt that she had forgotten something, which should be something very important. She had a strong premonition that this matter would have a decisive improvement on her current predicament. But this matter is like a mouse that has entered a rat hole. You can only peek outside and see a thin and long tail in the hole, but you can't catch the whole mouse. Yang Zhao, what are you running around for every day? It's noon, and you don't even go home for lunch. A familiar voice came from not far away, and Yang Zhao couldn't help rolling her eyes. It happened again. Ever since she was woken up by the big stick and started to feel dizzy, she heard more than one person calling her. At first, it was a child or an old man who would lie on the ground and pretend to be pitiful, asking her for help and begging her to stop. Yang Zhao was a little confused at first, and her brain hadn't started working yet. She actually ran 2 steps over there in a daze. As a result, as soon as she got close, she watched the baby being split in half by an unknown force and then turned into a young skeleton. At that time, the song just came up with a line. Chop the devil's heads with the big knife. Yang Zhao took 2 steps forward by inertia, then suddenly stopped and started running back. Her brain seemed to be dripped with lubricant, and it started to turn with a click. Although it didn't turn fast, it allowed her to recognize the current situation a little. Then this trick began to evolve, from children to the elderly, from injured women to people she knew, from her relatives and friends to her parents and brother. These people became closer and closer to her, and their immunity to the singing became higher and higher. These calls that sounded like real people evolved step by step to become more and more similar, so similar that Yang Zhao couldn't tell whether they were real or fake. They got closer and closer to her step by step, until this figure that looked like her mother was less than 10 steps away from her. These figures squeezed her reason, consumed her mind, tightened her nerves, and consumed her physical strength in this blood-red world. Like a blunt knife cutting meat, Yang Zhao could not die quickly, and had nowhere to escape, so he could only endure and feel the pain of every cut. A man should be in danger. How can he let a scholar waste his life? Moreover, the country is in danger, and the feathered dispatches are fighting without stopping. When singing this, Yang Zhao's mind flashed, and he suddenly grabbed the mouse's tail. It was a small note. It was a small note given by Shen Ruoyu. Yang Zhao stopped walking, panting heavily, turned around and looked straight at her mother. Then she bowed solemnly to her mother. Please bless me, ancestors. Yang Zhao spoke hoarsely, and she could not hear her voice even 3 steps away from her. But with just this sentence, the mother who was originally smiling and taking care of Yang Zhao to go home for dinner froze and stopped talking halfway. Yang Zhao continued to bow twice. Please bless me, ancestors. The skin and flesh on her mother's body seemed to be peeled off, revealing a withered white skeleton inside. The blood-red sky and earth began to brighten slightly, and the blood-mud ground under her feet no longer pulled her down, and the face of the statue in the distance no longer had a smile. Yang Zhao bowed 3 times. Please bless me, ancestors. In an instant, a warm light broke through the obstacles and shone on Yang Zhao, like a big hand protecting her completely in its arms. In the blink of an eye, the light became bigger and stronger. The nearby skeletons turned to ashes in the light, the statues in the distance broke, and the blood on the ground began to coagulate. Suddenly, there was a cracking sound from the dark. The whole world was like broken glass, cut into pieces by the light on Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao bent over, smelled the fishy smell of the sea, smelled the fragrance of green grass, felt the sight of others, and heard someone say lightly, "Wake up quickly, the thunder tribulation is coming." Shen Ruoyu. Yang Zhao suddenly opened his eyes and saw Shenryu standing not far away. Master. Ancestor. Yang Zhao's nose was sour and tears fell out. Shenryu summoned a water ball and threw it on Yang Zhao's face. Look up. Yang Zhao looked up suddenly and saw the sky was covered with dark clouds and thunder. Her scalp was numb and she stood up and flew towards Shenryu. Before she was half a foot off the ground, a lightning clang suddenly hit the ground where she was sitting. The dust splashed all over Yang Zhao. Yang Zhao was startled and ran towards Shenryu without stopping. Grandmaster, help me, I didn't break any heavenly rules. Why is this thunder following me? The flashes of lightning made her hair explode, and the thunder that followed hit her eardrums. She ran towards the Grandmaster at lightning speed, with lightning chasing her closely behind her, while Shenryu and Luan Chuangshan flew away. After a few breaths, the distance between the two sides not only did not narrow, but became farther and farther. Grandmaster, help me, help me. This is your thunder tribulation. Why are you running? Shenryu frowned as she retreated. Don't run, just take a few hits. Seeing this, Lu Sheng behind Shenryu's face twitched. The Cheyenne Mudan is a shortcut, and the quality of the cultivator's golden elixir will inevitably be affected. If the quality of the golden elixir is not high, the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth caused by the formation of the single is small, which leads to a small heavenly tribulation to be faced. Basically, people who come to the heavenly tomb to form a pill only have one tribulation, either the inner demon tribulation or the thunder tribulation, and neither of them is very powerful. The heavenly tribulation is a tribulation, but also an opportunity. The bigger the heavenly tribulation, the more spiritual power and spiritual charm the heaven and earth will give back after passing it, and the more it can fill the foundation of the cultivator, and vice versa. But Yang Zhao spent 3 days to break through the inner demon, and after passing it, he actually had to face the thunder tribulation. This is a normal treatment for those who did not take shortcuts to form a pill. The inner demon tribulation cannot be seen, but this thunder tribulation is even stronger than the ordinary one. But it shouldn't be. Lu Sheng had a lot of doubts in his heart, but he didn't show any of them to himself. Looking at Yang Zhao over there, she was a little hesitant when she heard Shenryu say that. Could it be? Bang! Yang Zhao jumped forward like a startled rabbit. Master, I don't dare. Help me, please help me. Shenryu was unmoved. On the contrary, he pinched his fingers with one hand, and the electric light flickered faintly at his fingertips. Yang Zhao, if you come over here again, I will strike you with thunder. Yang Zhao paused, and a flash of lightning instantly submerged her. When the lightning faded and thunder sounded, lightning-shaped marks appeared on Yang Zhao's body. Yang Zhao's head was stunned, and she shook her wrist, and the Jayana long spear appeared in her hand. She threw the Jayana long spear into the sky, higher than her head, and the second lightning struck the Jayana long spear in a curve. In the thunder, she faintly heard Yushans shouting and cursing. Yang Zhao blinked her eyes, controlled the height and distance of the Jayana long spear in the air, and took the initiative to meet the third lightning. Taking advantage of this short gap, she slapped the small Kyankan bag in the pocket of her shorts, and a bead flew out with a whoosh. It was Feng Lingsu. Feng Lingsu hummed and expanded, and 16 shields whooshed around her and flew up and down. Yang Zhao waved her hand, and the dragon spear flashing with lightning rushed into the rapidly rotating shield like a gust of wind, and returned to her hand with a scorching sound, which made her hand tremble. The lightning in the sky bit like a hound, and then deviated under the attraction of the metal. With a clang, 2 shields were smashed to the ground by lightning, and the lightning nearby made Yang Zhao's whole body numb. She didn't dare to be careless, and quickly mobilized the remaining shields to fill the gap. But the big hole was not filled yet, and there was a clang, and 5 more shields were smashed to the ground. The smell of burnt fur reached Yang Zhao's nose, and before she could react to what it was, 2 lightning flashes followed, and smashed all the remaining shields into the ground. Yang Zhao threw the dragon spear into the sky again, and with clear curses, amid the thunder, she pinched her hand to mobilize Feng Lingsu, but the shield, that was originally easy to use was now motionless, like a dead object. Yang Zhao's eyes widened a little. This time, before she could react, a flash of lightning boomed, and smashed her into the ground. Yang Zhao was hit by the lightning, and felt severe pain all over her body. She was fuzzy-minded, A mouthful of fishy and sweet food hit her throat and then flowed out of her nostrils. She wouldn't die here, would she? Master, help me. Yang Zhao shouted with all her might. She felt that her voice could resound throughout the Cheyenne Fu, but it was not much louder than a mosquito. Master, help me. Yang Zhao struggled to get up, but she was like a turtle under a weight. She couldn't move a finger except trembling. She couldn't help but think pessimistically, I'm not really going to die here, am I? How can I die here? I can't die here. Yang Zhao mobilized his spiritual power to rush down, and the reaction force threw her out. Help. Shenroi couldn't help but smile as she watched Yang Zhao still struggling and shouting for help from a distance. 9 golden elixirs are full. Congratulations to fellow Daoist Shen. Fellow Yang has successfully passed the heavenly tribulation and entered the golden elixir stage. Luan Chuangshen and Feng congratulated Shenroi again. Fellow Daoist, you have a successor. Ha 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 ha, congratulations. Shenroi flashed to Yang Zhao and lifted her up from the ground with her spiritual power. Yang Zhao, you passed the tribulation. Yang Zhao asked with a mouthful of blood. Grand Master, did you use thunder to strike me? Why does this thunder smell like your thunder method? Yang Zhao was too familiar with Shenroi's thunder method. She still had 3 thunder methods stored in her forehead that she hadn't used. Although it felt a bit illusory, Yang Zhao's intuition told her that this thunder was mixed with Shenroi's thunder method. Sorry, I fell asleep. Chapter 462. The ground was in a mess. The ground after the thunderstorm was like the alopecia on an adult's head, pitted and pitted. The Gianna long spear was struck by lightning and flew far away, sticking diagonally into the ground. The red tassel on the tip of the spear had been stained with burnt black, and most of it was bald. But at least it was not broken, and Yang Zhao breathed a sigh of relief. Then when he saw Feng Lingsu, he was relieved again. It was really that these 16 shields were too miserable. Some of the sharp corners were broken, some of the boards were rugged, and even several sides had changed color. Yang Zhao, who was numb from the lightning, barely got up and sat cross-legged, and first took out the Kyankan bag in his pocket. Fortunately, the appearance was not damaged as before, so he opened it to see if it could be used normally. If this is damaged by lightning, my equipment will explode. Muttering softly, Yang Zhao summoned a small water ball and rinsed the blood in his mouth. She waved her hand, and the Gianna long spear trembled for a moment, and was pulled out of the ground reluctantly, and returned to Yang Zhao's hand with a swoosh. She picked at the charred red tassel, and felt a little guilty in her small conscience. Yashin, I'm sorry, are you hungry? I'll burn some incense for you, and I tell you, a little incense is more than 1 person tall, and it can burn for a whole day and definitely make you full. The Gianna long spear didn't make a sound, just treating itself as a dead object. Alas, you don't talk every day. I'm really afraid that you will be depressed. Yang Zhao shrunk the Gianna long spear and buckled it on her wrist, looking solemnly at the Fengling pearls scattered on the ground, and waved her hand. Only 2 or 3 of the 16 shields trembled, and the rest didn't move, and didn't really obey her call at all. Alas, this thing is useless. Yang Zhao used her spiritual power to pick up all the 16 shields and stuff them into the Kyankan bag. After doing everything, she looked up and looked at Shenroi eagerly. Master, my body crackles when I move. Shenroi. Yang Zhao was dragged back to Shuncheng's courtyard by Shenroi's spiritual power, and Luan Chuangshen treated her injuries. There were more than 30 cuts on her body made by a knife. Now these wounds have scabbed over, and the scars can be removed by applying some medicine. The area of the danshan in her abdomen was even more bruised and purple. The action of Feng breaking Yang Zhao's danshan inevitably hurt Yang Zhao's body. In addition to these minor injuries, rose-colored branch-like lightning patterns appeared on her neck, shoulders, back, and large areas of her abdomen. There was a kind of burning pain on her skin. She also felt a headache and tinnitus, and her limbs were a little out of control. Luan Chuangshen pointed at those patterns and teased. It's quite beautiful. Do you want me to help you keep these patterns? They are quite popular among young people in the cultivation world. The patterns are unique and there are thousands of different patterns. Don't bother me, senior. I don't have any hobbies for this thing. Yang Zhao was not interested in tattoos, and now she felt psychological pain when she saw these rose-colored lightning patterns. Luan Chuangshan left the medicine for Yang Zhao and gave him a reminder. As long as you use your power to absorb the power of the lightning points and the lightning patterns, these patterns will disappear by themselves and you don't need to apply medicine or anything. Feng Yaozhe also took out a palm-sized wooden box from his sleeve. He opened the box and found that it was divided into 2 layers, with 12 pills on the first layer, for a total of 22 pills. These pills promote the growth of your meridians. You should take one every 3 days. After 3 months, your meridians will be almost recovered. Then you can just cut a few small cuts on your body and use your energy to force out the eggs. Seeing Yang Zhao nod, Feng gave another worried instruction. Before your meridians are fully grown, you can only practice one big cycle every day, and you can't practice various spells, and you can't fight with others at will, so as not to hurt the eggs and affect the recovery of your meridians. Taking the elixir, Yang Zhao smelled the bitter taste from the medicine box. Don't worry, I will definitely follow the doctor's advice. The 2 doctors went out one after another, leaving only Yang Zhao and Shen Roi in the room. Yang Zhao didn't say anything, just stared at Shen Roi silently. The thunder tribulation was definitely not her illusion. How can an elder like me trip you up? If it weren't for seeing Yang Zhao looking pitiful, Shen Roi would have wanted to pat her head to see if it was cooked. It's not that your foundation is not solid, and the thunder tribulation is a little weak. In order to give you a beautiful golden elixir, I can only help you. Yang Zhao was wronged. Yang Zhao didn't say anything. She wanted to drop a few gold nuggets, but she felt that she had no position. Okay, look at what you look like in this dress. Hurry up and wash up and change clothes. After that, stabilize your cultivation. I won't bother you anymore. Unable to bear Yang Zhao's aggrieved look, Shen Roi stepped out of the house. The next day, Luan Chuangshan and Feng came to say goodbye to them again. We haven't been home for 2 months. I'm eager to go home. I'm sorry to bother you 2 seniors for these 2 months. When they were sent to the small port on the seashore, Yang Zhao took out 2 large food boxes with exquisite workmanship and antique style, half a person's height, from the Kyankan bag. In addition to some special cakes prepared by Guo Fumin Qiang, there were also several bottles of wine on the bottom layer. There were all kinds of liquor, red wine, foreign liquor, and beer, and there was a bill for 1,000 taels of silver under the bottle. Yang Zhao opened the lid to reveal the pastries inside. It's just a small token of my appreciation. Please accept it and eat it to relieve your boredom on the way. The 2 did not refuse. They took the box, got on their respective transportation instruments, and flew away. Looking at Lu Sheng standing not far away, Yang Zhao shrugged helplessly. Then Shen Roi took Yang Zhao and flew into the sky. Let's go back to Black Pearl Island. Chapter 463. The sea and the sky are one color, and the giant star outshines the sun. Yang Zhao followed Shen Roi and flew slowly, wondering as he flew. Master, is there something wrong with you? If nothing happened, why are you flying so slowly? You can even fish with a hook. Nothing, just waiting for a friend. Yang Zhao's mind was full of question marks. Who was he waiting for? Did Master make new friends in Xianfu this month? How about we stop flying and wait here? Shen Roi narrowed her eyes at Yang Zhao and continued to fly slowly forward without saying anything. Yang Zhao was confused and could only continue to follow. But before he could fly 2 steps, Shen Roi suddenly grabbed Yang Zhao's collar and flew high into the sky. In 2 breaths, he rose more than 200 meters before he stopped. Yang Zhao, who was originally confused, felt goosebumps all over his body, narrowed his eyes slightly, and shook his wrist. The giant long spear appeared in his hand, and the tip of the spear pointed straight down. The sea was still calm, the water was blue, and the years were peaceful. But the calmer it was, the stronger Yang Zhao's sense of crisis became. A huge fear was like a cold snake tongue slowly crawling up from the bottom of her feet, and the fangs soaked with poison reflected the cold light in the sun. Master, your friend is not very friendly, right? Shen Roi also lowered her head and looked. I don't know, I haven't met. Haven't met? Are you chatting with an online friend? After a few words, the fear became stronger and stronger, and Yang Zhao silently took another half step towards Shen Roi. If it weren't for the crisis in the sky coming from under her feet, Yang Zhao even wanted to hide behind her master. Shenroi didn't show any expression to Yang Zhao's actions, staring at the sea with interest, waiting for the other party to show up. After half a cup of tea, a black shadow the size of a fingernail appeared on the sea. The moment the black shadow appeared, Yang Zhao was like an old black and white TV with a problem, with heavy snow, buzzing sounds piercing his ears, and the space in front of him was distorted. Yang Zhao shook the Gianna long spear with both hands. The half-foot-long spear light was emitting cold light, and the golden red color dyed her eyes. The originally distorted space returned to normal slightly. However, as the black shadow rose, the normal space was filled with snowflakes again. The buzzing sound exploded in her ears, making her head hurt. If Yang Zhao had not been sure that she could not beat it, and if her backer Shenroi had not been following her, she would have dropped her pole and ran away. If she couldn't run, she would have dropped her pole and kneeled down. Who would still be here to resist? Okay, put away your magical power. Why are you scaring a child? This sentence reached Yang Zhao's ears. Yang Zhao only felt that his eyes were clear, his ears were quiet, and the fear disappeared. Large patches of blue broke into his eyes, and the whole world became lovely. At this time, Yang Zhao could see the black shadow in front of him clearly. It was a black shadow. An oval black shadow. It had no head, no hands, no feet, no body, and even no substance or substance. It was a vague small black shadow. Yang Zhao blinked his eyes and looked up and down, left and right, but the shadow didn't change. Shenroi bowed to the opposite side. I'm Shenroi. I don't know why you are here. The black shadow squirmed a little, but didn't say anything, but Yang Zhao inexplicably felt that the other party's eyes were looking at him. She can't do it. She just formed a pill, and she can't stand you. Change something. I don't know how the two sides communicated. Anyway, when Yang Zhao didn't hear any sound from the black shadow, and didn't understand any movement of the black shadow, Shenroi began to bargain with the other party. The black shadow squirmed again, and Shenroi still shook his head. The Gianna long spear won't work either. This spear has a soul. It's impossible for you to eat it. You can't occupy someone's body either. Shenroi said a few words to himself, and finally took out 2 silver snails. You can stay here first, and when you get there, you can choose the parasite yourself. How about it? The black shadow didn't move, and Yang Zhao didn't dare to breathe. Even if he couldn't see the other party's expression clearly, Yang Zhao could feel the other party's anger. This anger made Yang Zhao's goosebumps, which had finally disappeared, stand up again. Shenroi held the silver conch straight up, unmoved by the anger of the black shadow. After a short stalemate, Shenroi threw the pair of silver conches into the air. The black shadow stretched out a tentacle to approach the silver conches and disappeared like water absorbed by a sponge. Then the pair of silver conches returned to Shenroi's hand and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yang Zhao was completely confused by this half-day pantomime. She held the gun like a fool, standing there as a decoration, and even the gun light on the tip of the gun was dull for a few seconds. Yang Zhao asked in a low voice, "Grandmaster, who is this?" Shenroi's face showed a big smile. "The Undertaker in the Heavenly Tomb, the one you have heard of." Heavenly Tomb? The Undertaker? And he knew it himself? Yang Zhao dug in his mind and dug out a person whose name he did not know. The young master of Xianfu who died young in the legend? The one for whom the Heavenly Tomb was built. It couldn't be the ones from the Yu clan who just died, right? Yes, that's the man. Shenroi waved his sleeves, and layers of water vapor gathered at the feet of the two people. "Put away the guns, let's go." Yang Zhao felt his feet slip, and the whole person rushed forward. Chapter 464, Tower Eats People. The sea breeze was blowing. Yang Zhao, who was flying in the clouds for the first time, couldn't help but be curious about the black shadow. He smiled and wanted to ask what was going on. It's not a big secret. The ancestor of Xianfu wanted to use the Heavenly Tomb to gather the incense of those who couldn't make pills in the world, so that the dead child could ascend to the throne of God. Although it was a small throne, he was still alive, right? Yang Zhao suddenly realized that this matter was just a layer of window paper. If you poke a hole, everything behind the window paper will be clear at a glance. Has he ascended to the throne of God now? Shenryu chuckled. No, it's not that easy to ascend to the throne of God. Not only does it take a lot of incense, but it also takes a lot of time. Yang Zhao sorted out the timeline of this matter in his mind. That is to say, because the War of Gods happened suddenly, the major sects created the Great Zhao for the purpose of united front. Xianfu, which did not join the court, became an outside sect, and lost its previous influence and sphere of influence. Shenryu nodded silently. Xianfu failed to keep up with the development, and was severely left behind by the times. In the end, it could only curl up on a small island, and survive by relying on the legacy of its predecessors. Although he got a positive answer, Yang Zhao felt that something was wrong. Why are there so few people going to Xianfu? That's the Dan formation. Although Yang Zhao has always been outside the world of cultivation, he also knows that it is not easy for everyone to form a Dan. The success rate of cultivators from orthodox schools is only 1 in a few dozen Dan formations, which is the result of the court and the strengths of many families and their dedicated research. The success rate of foreign cultivators is only 1 in a few hundred. The reason for such a big gap is that many people don't even know how many meridians they have. The reason why Yang Zhao advanced so easily is that all the 12 arteries and 8 extraordinary meridians in her body were opened without any omissions, which laid a solid foundation for her cultivation career. This is a rare thing in the world of cultivation. Except for the aristocratic families who have inherited it, the rest of the people can't open all the meridians. How can you have the ability to climb up if you don't have a complete foundation? From this point of view, Xianfu is definitely a place that people flock to. How could there be only 200 or 300 people living and seeking in Shunsheng? No, Shunsheng is so big. He saw it so big at the beginning, naturally because there are so many people who want to live there. It's just that now Shunsheng is depressed because of some things. But what happened to hit the fortune of a 1,000-year-old sect? Because of cannibalism. A familiar voice suddenly sounded, startling Yang Zhao. Weekend looked and found a blackbird hovering in the sky in front. Yang Zhao was not very vigilant around Shenryu, and he was thinking about something, and didn't notice that the big bird was only more than 20 meters away from him. Lu Sheng. Why is he here? Lu Sheng folded his wings and transformed into a human body. He wore a blue gradient crane cloak today and saluted Shenryu. Junior greets you. My tribesmen are fishing here. I came to see you specially. I accidentally heard your question and answered you. I hope you can forgive me. After hearing this, Yang Zhao lowered his head and saw a group of blackbirds similar to Lu Sheng circling in the sea below. From time to time, a bird would dive into the sea. Looking at this, Yang Zhao was not sure whether Lu Sheng was waiting for them here on purpose. After all, there are thousands of roads on the sea. Who can be sure that they will meet? Shenryu nodded slightly and turned to look at Yang Zhao. You two are familiar with each other. Do you want to chat for a while? Huh? Yang Zhao glanced at Lu Sheng, then looked back at Shenryu and understood something. Master, do you want to go fishing? Yes. Shenryu agreed very straightforwardly. He flicked his sleeves to split the floating cloud under his feet into 2 parts. He pressed the cloud head and went to the sea. Yang Zhao mobilized his spiritual power to stabilize the cloud under his feet. You know what? With such a cloud, it looks very celestial. Fellow Daoist Lu, what do you mean by cannibalism? Lu Sheng watched Shenryu for a while, then turned to look at Yang Zhao. Cannibalism is just plain cannibalism. Cannibalism in Xianfu is not old news. You have been to the so-called Tangshan Tower, and you should have seen those evil spirits trapped in the tower. Yang Zhao nodded. You said it was those evil spirits that ate people. Yes and no. Lu Sheng did not beat around the bush. He couldn't let Shenryu wait down there all the time. The so-called Tangshan Tower was not called this name at first. It was called Qiansan Tower. After suppressing the enemy, the opponent's soul would be trapped to nourish the magic weapon. Shenryu mentioned this to Yang Zhao in general, but he didn't go into detail. Lu Sheng had some self-mockery on his face. This method was easy to use when Xianfu was prosperous. At that time, there were many talented people in their sect, and some of them were powerful enough to suppress the evil spirits in Qiansan Tower and prevent them from causing too much trouble. But now that Xianfu has declined, it does not have such great confidence and means, So when facing those evil spirits, it is natural to adopt a policy of appeasement. Yang Zhao nodded silently. This is how it should be. Otherwise, using tough means will hurt the enemy by 1000 and hurt yourself by 800. It is a very uneconomical deal for Xianfu, which is now hiding in a place. If Xianfu's strength is greatly reduced, some people will rob the Xianmu in the name of pirates. The arena in the tower is used to appease those evil spirits with the blood of cultivators. Hundreds of years ago, Shuncheng was also a bustling place. There were at least 3000 people who entered the tower to fight to the death every day. With so many people entering, there are naturally some stupid ones. At that time, many people were fooled by the evil spirits in the tower to sign soul body contracts. As long as the requirements of the contract were not met, those evil spirits would attach themselves to Xiao's body at will and try to escape the tower. Yang Zhao raised his eyebrows. Did anyone succeed in escaping? Lu Sheng shook his head. No soul has ever been able to escape from the tower. If they didn't escape, then the evil spirit got angry and killed people. Lu Sheng continued to shake his head. Evil spirits can't kill people. How can an evil spirit whose life and death are not under its own control kill people? It's the Qianxin Tower that kills people. Yang Zhao was shocked. You know, when she first entered the tower, she was also forced to sign some kind of contract, but she was a conservative person, and Shenroi followed her, and didn't sign those messy things. If she had been less vigilant, would she have died in the Thousand Towns Tower? Lu Sheng didn't care about the change in Yang Zhao's expression. It is said that every cultivator who signed a contract with the evil spirit died in the end. Many people died. The exact number is unknown. Some say 2000, and some say 3000. Anyway, there were too many. It was the biggest tragedy in the cultivation world at that time. At first, Qianfu wanted to keep it secret, but cultivators don't come out of nowhere. How could they keep it secret? Since it couldn't be kept secret, it inevitably alarmed the Great Zhao Court, which had only been established for a few years, and that's how the Shun City came into being. Chapter 465. She should have thought of this earlier. Yang Zhao listened to Lu Sheng talking about the past of Xianfu, and a doubt flashed in his mind and he couldn't help asking. There are too many dead souls in Qianxin Tower, right? Is it because Xianfu has been fighting in recent years and new souls have been pouring in? Or can a fierce soul survive in the tower for a long time? Otherwise, how could there still be thousands of fierce souls gambling in the tower? Is time particularly kind to the fierce souls in Qianxin Tower? It's not what brother Daoist Yang thinks. Xianfu is still good at defending its status quo now, but it can forget about large-scale fighting. Of course, Qianxin Tower is not that kind. The reason why there are thousands of fierce souls in the tower is that the court will lend the tower out for use regularly. When the time comes, the body will return to the court, and the soul will stay to nourish Qianxin Tower. Yang Zhao was a little surprised when he heard it. Can the master's magic weapon be lent out? Lu Sheng chuckled. Why not? The current Xianfu is not the same as the previous Xianfu. Xianfu is the biggest beneficiary of this business. Yang Zhao is not a fool, and she naturally understands what he said. For a declining Xianfu, lending out the Visa Tower would not only help them build a good relationship with the Imperial Court and find a good backer, but also allow them to nourish the Thousand Town Tower without suffering any casualties. This is indeed a good business. So can the Thousand Town Tower be lent out? Yang Zhao emphasized the word outside. Lu Sheng looked at Yang Zhao deeply. Yes, as long as the price is right, Xianfu will lend it. Yang Zhao nodded thoughtfully and then smiled at Lu Sheng. Dao Lu Sheng, thank you for solving my confusion. What is there to thank me for? This is old news. Dao can find out by asking someone. Since I can meet you two in the vast ocean, it is a great fate. I don't deserve a thank you for just chatting for a few words. Lu Sheng's words were extremely humble, but how could Yang Zhao believe that the two sides meeting was a coincidence? But seeing that the other party had no intention of saying anything further, Yang Zhao did not ask any more questions. Before leaving, the two people added each other's messenger magic tools. Yang Zhao stood at the end of the cloud and looked back at the group of blackbirds circling over the sea, his doubts growing deeper and deeper. Grandmaster, why did Lu Sheng chase us? When Yang Zhao and the others left, Lu Sheng was watching them eagerly from behind. The reason why he could run ahead of them and meet them now was because Shenroi flew slowly at the beginning to wait for others, but more importantly, Lu Sheng must have led the birds of his tribe to chase them from behind. But he did catch up, and it was also a problem for Shenroi to let the other party chatter with him about all the gossip in Xianfu. I asked you to communicate with him. Of course I don't have a brain now, my memory is really not very good, but that little bird remembers everything. Shenroi stood on the top of the cloud, his clothes fluttering lightly, and he looked quite immortal. Grandmaster, you have great magical powers and profound ideas. You must have other intentions for this matter. You also know that I'm a dull person and my mind is not flexible. Please give me some advice. Shenroi smiled. Do you know why there is spiritual water in the heavenly tomb that can help people form elixir? Yang Zhao was stunned for a moment. The previous sentence was about Lu Sheng, so why did the second sentence turn to the heavenly tomb? I remember you said that the origin of the spiritual water is untraceable. Shenroi looked forward with his hands behind his back. It's not untraceable, but in front of Master Lu, I have to save some face for Xianfu. Now think about why Lu Sheng came to Xianfu. Why did he do that? And why can the heavenly tomb, which is a place for the dead to gather incense, produce spiritual water? Think about the Thousand Towns Tower. Yang Zhao blinked, and her thoughts could not help but rush in the most bizarre direction, and she was pressed down hard by herself. Impossible? Grandmaster, if that's the case, why did Lu Sheng and the others go in? Shenroi's voice was clear and bright, with a little smile. Of course it's because it's good. Yang Zhao's scalp was numb, and he looked at Shenroi in despair. Grandmaster, please don't disgust me. If it's really as I guessed, I won't be able to sleep well in the future. Shenroi looked back at Yang Zhao. It's just what you think. Meow. Yang Zhao pressed her tongue that had its own ideas and forced herself to change the dirty words. She felt itchy all over her body now, and she felt bad all over. She pinched her fingers with one hand, and the tiny spiritual light of the dust removal technique flashed continuously. What the hell is spiritual vein water? That's corpse water. Yang Zhao couldn't help but feel annoyed. She should have thought of this earlier. Regardless of whether the cultivator is near death or not, their bodies that have been watered by spiritual power for a long time are treasures, no matter where they are placed. Otherwise, where did the Jayana long spear in Yang Zhao's hand come from? That was Yashin's spine. The heavenly tomb was created to be a cemetery. Its main purpose is to allow people to ascend to the throne of God and live in disguise, not to produce spiritual water. Where does the spiritual water come from? Shenroi's hint was so obvious that Yang Zhao had to believe the most bizarre answer, even if he didn't want to believe it anymore. No, master, wait for me. I'll go to the sea to wash for a while. Yang Zhao couldn't wait for Shenroi's consent, so he stepped out of the auspicious cloud and fell straight into the sea. Shenroi's laughter could still be heard faintly. When Yang Zhao came up, her fingers were wrinkled. She sat on the cloud listlessly. But why? Why should the feather tribe be buried in it? Because the feather tribe is also a monster. As long as it is a monster, the first step to step into the cultivation is to open up the spiritual wisdom. Without spiritual wisdom, it is a beast. Shenroi also followed Yang Zhao and sat on the cloud. This is the most important and most difficult step. For the demon race, only 1 in 100 animals can open their spiritual intelligence, and the water of the spiritual vein is a main ingredient for opening the spiritual pill. Main ingredient? Yang Zhao couldn't help but mutter in a low voice. This is using the bones of ancestors to open the spiritual intelligence of the same race. I don't know if there are prions in this world of cultivation. Shenroi didn't understand. What did you say? No, it must be more than just this benefit. This process must also be beneficial to those predecessors, otherwise it would be difficult for the water of the spiritual vein to circulate for so many years. It is impossible for everyone to be so fearless and willing to sacrifice themselves and leave a legacy for their own people, even after death. Since there are few such people, the water of the spiritual vein has become a scarce resource. How could Xianfu be willing to let outsiders use this scarce resource that can help people form pills? Shenroi, have you forgotten? The purpose of refining the heavenly tomb is to gather incense and help people become gods. Those who are willing to enter the heavenly tomb want to exchange their dedication for the incense of their clansmen for generations, in exchange for the slim hope of becoming a god after death. Yang Zhao felt sick. So there are many wandering souls in the heavenly tomb? When I was forming the elixir, there were many eyes watching me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 466. Settling for the next best? What is going on here? Yang Zhao reached out and scratched her hair, but then she thought, something is wrong. Isn't that what she is asking about? That's not right either. Even if someone sacrifices themselves to become a god, why would Xianfu make this resource that can form a pill available to the public? Shenroi was a little too lazy to dwell on this matter. Use your brain and sort this matter out in time. Everything is in front of you. If you still can't figure out the tricks, then I'm sorry. You have studied for so many years. I study for exams, not to figure out why people are giving away so much money. Yang Zhao continued to scratch her head, and she felt hungry as she thought about it. Just as she was about to take out a few candies from her arms, her fingers suddenly touched the Dao card on her neck. A flash of inspiration came to her, and her blocked thoughts instantly became clear. Because the sharing of benefits was decided during the heyday of Xianfu, the reason why Xianfu released this part of the benefits was to expand its influence among the public in the world of self-cultivation, and to better accumulate incense. After all, compared with the entire world of cultivation, the incense of a single sect is pitifully small. Helping people to form pills sounds selfless, but not many people are really benefited. You see, now Xianfu only releases 3 places on the surface, allowing everyone to compete in the arena, and the others who enter the tower are all through the relationship of the Great Zhao Court. Besides, who would not give Xianfu some benefits to those who find Xianfu and want to enter the heavenly tomb? Otherwise, you can use your blood to appease the evil spirits in the Thousand Towns Tower and earn that 1% probability, or spend money like Yang Zhao to bring people in. In short, it's not a loss. But is this a model that Xianfu is willing to do? Of course not. This is because Xianfu is riding on the back of a tiger and can't get off, so it has to do it. In its heyday, Xianfu can use a little bit of unimportant resources to collect incense from all over the world. And when it was weak, it did not dare to take back this part of the benefits. Who would let you take back the benefits you have spit out? The benefits have already gone into other people's pockets. It is difficult to get them to take them out, even if they are your own. So when the Qianxin Tower cannibalism tragedy broke out in Xianfu, the Great Zhao dynasty had a legitimate reason to intervene, and there was the shame of Xianfu, Shengsheng. Afterwards, the quota for entering the Xianmu Jinden was legitimately taken over by the Great Zhao dynasty. Did the Qianxin Tower only eat people at that time? The Qianxin Tower has always eaten people. This is playing politics. Yang Zhao shook her head, and the candy in her mouth was chewed by her. But while chewing, Yang Zhao raised her hand and slapped her forehead. No, my first question was actually two. One is how did the person in your silver snail come here? The other is why did Lu Sheng come to block us in advance? Shenroi looked at Yang Zhao with a look of disappointment. I've made everything clear to you. Yang Zhao sat there and smiled foolishly. Grandmaster, I'm not that stupid. At least I know that Lu Sheng came here because there are too few birds in their tribe who have awakened their spiritual wisdom. They are powerless and want to build a good relationship with official bigwigs like Luan Chuangsheng, but Dr. Luan Chuangsheng doesn't give us any face. We are Lu Sheng's second best. Yang Zhao took out a few more candies from his arms and threw them into his mouth. I've also figured it out. The reason why Lu Sheng blocked me this time may be to add my contact information and use some inside information he knows to show his face in your place. But the one in your silver snail, I really don't know how you contacted him. Shenroi pointed at Yang Zhao's eyes. You must have had a nightmare after you formed the elixir. Yang Zhao paused chewing the candy and smiled awkwardly. Grandmaster, How did you know this? Because with your personality, as long as the nightmare doesn't bother you anymore, you will definitely advertise it to the world. At least you will come to me to show off. The eye problem is not a big deal. As long as you form the elixir, the nightmare will be cured immediately. Since it is not good, there must be something wrong. Shenryu pressed the cloud head, and the Black Pig Island appeared in his sight. When you formed the elixir, he had some unusual movements in the heavenly tomb. Now your nightmare is not cured, so I naturally suspect that he has tested your eyes. Shenryu removed the magic to block the wind, and the wind in the sky made the clothes of the two people rustle. You should know that your eyes are the most affected part of your body by incense. The soul that longs for incense, but can't live, will find the incense on you in her territory, and will naturally find you. Touching his eyelids, Yang Zhao licked his lips. Then why did you take him in, Grandmaster? Because you have already formed a pill. How can the teleportation formation of U9 Temple be rebuilt? In addition to Old Shark, I will find you another helper to suppress Xiaonan Mountain. Although he is dying, it does not mean that his cultivation is low. Yang Zhao couldn't close his mouth. Did things turn around so quickly? Rebuilding the teleportation formation? Go to teleport the formation now? She has just been here for more than a year, and she has to build this teleportation formation? Well, Guofiming Qiang may not be willing to do it so early. We have to give them some preparation time, right? 1 year is a bit too short. She spoke in a low voice, and it was blown away by the wind. Shenryu teased a small cloud at her hand boredly. The final decision on rebuilding the teleportation formation has never been in the hands of the new dynasty of Chixin Shenzhou, nor in your hands. Just like your cultivation, the reason why you practice so fast is not because of your hard work, but because I'm anxious. Master. Grandmaster? Yang Zhao was really confused this time. Let's not talk about the matter of moving the formation. Why would she be anxious about her cultivation? Because of Shenryu. This is not right. The logic is not sound. Shenryu looked at Yang Zhao's silly look and chuckled. Do you think that a person who has just opened his meridians and spirit and practiced for a year can form a pill? Who in the whole cultivation world dares to think of such a beautiful thing? If your story is publicized, the whole cultivation world will be in an uproar. After Shenryu's reminder, Yang Zhao realized that his cultivation speed was a bit exaggerated. It was also thanks to the pill recipe you provided that I was able to build my foundation in 100 days. It was also thanks to you, Dr. Luan Chuangsheng, and Dr. Feng Yaozhe, that I was able to form a pill. In this way, I'm really lucky. In this way, it is indeed that Master Shenryu has made a great effort. But, why is he anxious? Shenryu flicked his fingers, and the cloud silk on his fingertips disappeared. You still don't understand clearly. The reason why you have cultivated so fast is not only due to this year, and not only to the three of us, but also to your master. The next chapter will fill in the holes of these more than 400 chapters, although you may not have stepped on those holes. Chapter 467, Filling the Hole. My master, Taoist Lu Shoren? Does my master still participate in my cultivation? Yang Zhao was really confused. After all, her master had passed away several years before she came here. Shenryu pointed at Yang Zhao's neck. Do you think that is a treasure? Yang Zhao nodded blankly. Of course, this thing is definitely a magic weapon for the sect. No, it should be said to be a treasure for the country. Then how did it appear on your neck? Doesn't your master know that this is a treasure? Does the master know? Could it be that my master doesn't know? So I was chosen by the master a long time ago. Yang Zhao's mind returned to the distant past. It was her master who changed her name. It was her master who gave such an important thing to her when she was only 3 years old. And it was also her master who took her to the big ginkgo tree and taught her how to raise a spirit step by step under the watchful eyes of Uncle Gongsun. Touching the Taoist tablet hanging on her neck, Yang Zhao had some enlightenment in her heart. I was weak at that time, and my master said that he would use the Dao tablet to keep me safe. Since I hung up the Dao tablet, I really haven't had love sickness. Shenryu added, you are not weak, you are just more friendly and sensitive to spiritual energy, and the spiritual energy of Chixin Shenzhou is too heavy, and you couldn't bear it when you were young. In fact, if you don't have the Dao tablet, when you grow up to 11 or 12 years old, your body will naturally get used to those spiritual powers and be no different from ordinary people. Your master gave you the Dao tablet so that your body can maintain a state of affinity and sensitivity to spiritual power. At this point, what else did Yang Zhao not understand? So I can come here, not because I practiced the spiritual style and caused the spiritual power tide to activate the teleportation formation, but because Uncle Gongsun activated the formation to send me here. There was no accident. It was Uncle Gongsun who sent Yang Zhao here at the time he thought was appropriate. After Taoist Lu passed away, Uncle Gongsun Zin waited for a while, and when Yang Zhao's studies were almost completed, he sent her to the other world. Therefore, the teleportation formation on Xiaoyang Mountain in Liuxin village has always been controlled by Uncle Gongsun. Yang Zhao and Guofuminqiang use the teleportation formation to exchange materials. In fact, it was Uncle Gongsun who opened the door to convenience, and he acquiesced. Apart from anything else, Uncle Gongsun is now flourishing. If he doesn't want people to use the teleportation formation, he can just move the roots and the teleportation formation will be destroyed without others finding it. What about you? Are you really unaware of what happened to Uncle Gongsun Yang on the south mountain of Kangcheng? How could I not know? Do you really think I'm dead? I saw Uncle Fang take away Uncle Gongsun's house with my own eyes. This sentence was extremely cold, and Shen Roi looked into the distance with gloomy eyes. But I couldn't do anything. I could only watch. I watched him take over the body of Uncle Gongsun Yang. I watched him practice. I watched him trapped in the ginkgo tree and unable to transform, until I saw you coming. Yang Zhao looked at Shen Roi in disbelief. She had always thought that Shen Roi didn't know when Fang Shili took over the body. Unexpectedly, he knew. You have been enduring humiliation for more than 100 years. I had to endure it. At that time, Uncle Gongsun Yang was in the open, while I was in the dark. I had just died and was weak. Fang Shili came to take over my body, not just by himself, but the whole Fang family. Although I don't take the Fang family seriously, Nanshan Yunayang Temple is too close to Kangcheng. As long as I make any unusual moves, all the cultivators in Kangcheng will go out to help their own people. Even the Great Zhao Court will not stand behind me, a foreigner. Fortunately, the teleportation formation of Chixin Shenzhou is guarded by Uncle Gongsun Zan, so the Fang family was not allowed to enter Chixin Shenzhou through the teleportation formation. The cold air spread from Shenroi, and Yang Zhao shivered with coldness. I can only bow my head when I'm under a low roof, but God has mercy on me. Chixin Shenzhou actually has a heavenly rule that after the founding of the country, one cannot become a spirit, which immediately blocked Fang Shila's way. Ha 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 ha. After laughing for a while, Shenroi's eyes were cold again. As soon as you arrived, I knew this opportunity had come. Fang Shili had been trapped in the tree for 100 years, and his mind had already gone astray. It's just that Master Gongsun's body is a Taoist tree, and a thin thread has pulled him. Yang Zhao couldn't help licking his lips and asked carefully, so, the reason why Fang Shili troubled me was actually because you, Master, had also done something in it, right? Shenroi looked at Yang Zhao, who was a little aggrieved, and didn't explain much. I want to make the Fang family deserted by everyone, and I want Fang Shili to die without a burial place. Then Fang Shili made a big fuss in Kangcheng, and provoked the Lord of Kangcheng. After knowing the heavenly law, he unconsciously dug up Shenroi's body, giving Shenroi the best position of victim in public, making him and Yang Zhao stand at the highest point of morality at once. Yang Zhao didn't know how much Shenroi did in this, but the final result was that Fang Shila's soul was eaten by Yang Zhao, and he died without a burial place in the true sense. Except for some women and children, the rest of the Fang family was sent to the front line, and the family wealth was dispersed. Only a small part was left for the women and children who stayed behind, to prevent them from starving to death. If the Fang family did not perform a miracle, the family would be completely defeated. Once the Fang family was defeated, the vacuum of interests and power would naturally be occupied by other families. If the Fang family wanted to take it back, it would incur public anger. The reason why a miracle is called a miracle is because it is rare and difficult. Your master has trained you very well. You are knowledgeable and insightful, and you have a strong mind. Although you are a little reckless and squeamish, you are upright and have righteousness in your heart. You are a good seedling for cultivation. This was the first time that Shenryu praised Yang Zhao so bluntly, and Yang Zhao was a little embarrassed. But it takes too long for a good seedling to grow into a towering tree. I can't wait. I don't have that much time to wander around in the world of cultivation. I can't let too many people know that I'm not dead yet. Is it difficult to make money? It's not difficult. Then why did I let you go to Falling Star Island for a few hundred taels of silver? Because I want to show you a corner of the world of cultivation and let you see what kind of threat this world of cultivation can pose to us. Yang Zhao couldn't help but think of the first time he went to Falling Star Island last year. To be honest, when Yang Zhao saw the meteorites drawn down by the layers of formations, he was really scared. This was a natural disaster beyond imagination, a natural disaster that could cause many casualties. When Yang Zhao imagined that these meteorites might fall on his compatriots, tears almost fell from his eyes. I chose the 100-day foundation building method for you. I prescribed the strongest medicine to help you practice as quickly as possible so that you have never felt comfortable since you started practicing. I blamed Liu Zengxia from Huanglan Gang for forcing the growth of seedlings by setting up an illusion array in your eyes, but in fact, I'm happy to see it all happen. Shenryu's eyebrows relaxed, and the gloomy expression at the corners of his mouth disappeared. When you came to tell me that your eyes were in trouble a few months ago, I thought in my heart that the 3 pure ones were helping me. The problem with your eyes will be like a whip, whipping you to form a pill quickly. Although an accident happened later, the result was not bad. Shenryu looked deeply at Yang Zhao. Now that you have formed a pill, no matter how many people come from Chix and Shenzhou, no matter how high their cultivation qualifications are, they will not pose any threat to you in a short time. This teleportation formation can finally be rebuilt. Chapter 468. Don't show off your wealth. The late summer sun was so bright that it could make people sweat. Yang Zhao sat on the cloud and suddenly felt a little cold. Is it so important for me to form a pill? Just a child's words. Shenryu sighed. It's not that forming a pill is important, it's that you have the ability to keep your own things. Shenryu stretched out a finger and pointed at the Taoist tablet on Yang Zhao's neck. When a child holds gold, everyone is a devil. When Wei Tuo stands beside him, all devils are saints. Don't show your wealth to others. It not only protects your wealth, but also your life. Have you heard about the 5 ancestors of Buddhism preaching? Yang Zhao shook her head. Not to mention the 5 ancestors preaching, she didn't even know who the 5 ancestors were. Then you can take a look for yourself when you have time. Even monks who practice every day can't suppress their bloodlust when facing the inheritance of the Taoist tradition. What's more, you have a treasure that is no worse than the Taoist tradition. If you sit in this position and have this treasure and show it to others, it will not only be a problem for you, but also a problem for others. Yang Zhao's mind was a little confused. He sat on the cloud in silence. You stay here quietly, I'm leaving first. Shenryu turned and disappeared. The weather at sea is always unpredictable. After a while, the layers of dark clouds blocked the scorching sun. When the wind blew, the rain fell. Yang Zhao sat silently, letting the rain soak her. She felt wronged, but this grievance was not wronged. No matter who looked at it, she benefited the most. She was the biggest winner of this plan. She was sent to practice Taoism by Uncle Gongsun. This was a great thing. In the words of their rural area, it was green smoke coming out of the ancestral grave. Not only green smoke, but also on fire. With the help of Shenryu, she had already formed a pill in 1 year. This achievement was placed in the entire world of Taoism. How many people would beg for it? Even those with great family support would need 2 or 3 years from opening the meridians to building the foundation. 1 year was not enough for them to study hard and take the examination for the government school. But she had already formed a pill and stood in front of everyone. In the 10,000 meter long distance race, she ran 200 meters first. As for the hundreds of thousands of taels of silver she had, it was nothing compared to the first 2. But even if it was nothing, it was something that many people could not even ask for. Suffering was nothing, getting hurt was nothing, killing people was nothing, and her mental torture was even less of a thing. As for hiding everything from her, was that a thing? Telling anyone about any of her grievances was just moaning without reason, being pretentious, not knowing what was good for her, and being hypocritical. But she was aggrieved. She had never suffered as much grievance as she had in this year in her previous 20 years of life. No one spoke to her grievances and no one complained. Mom, Dad, I miss you, I miss home. The rain on the sea came and went quickly. The little beans on Black Pearl Island were very happy when they knew that Yang Zhao had successfully formed the elixir. They said they would hold a banquet for the guests. They were really generous. This is a great happy event. We must let everyone on the island come to celebrate and have a good time. Don't worry, we have money in our account. The political commissar Xiaodaran hurriedly sent a flying boat to Yunshan City to purchase food and drinks and set up a banquet in the evening. That night, the small towns of the entire Black Pearl Island were really lively. Several small towns were brightly lit, and the aroma of cooking mixed with the laughter of children spread far away. It was no different from those parents who would hold a big banquet when their children were admitted to university. During the banquet, the giant and monks employed by Black Pearl Island took turns to toast Yang Zhao, calling each other brothers and sisters, toasting each other, and their attitudes were naturally friendly and made people feel like spring breeze. The sense of distance they used to give people was swept away because of this meal. As a monk who had a close relationship with Yang Zhao, Shangjia even proposed that the monks on the entire Black Pearl Island hold a small cultivation exchange meeting. Let's exchange our cultivation experiences with each other, and let the younger cultivators on the island listen. Yang Zhao's eyes lit up. This is a rare benefit for cultivators, not only for the cultivators on the island, but also for herself. After all, Yang Zhao's cultivation experience is too little. Thank you, Sister Shang, for teaching me, but I just formed a pill, and I don't know what to say. Shangjia smiled slightly. Just tell me how you survived the catastrophe. Yang Zhao raised his glass and drank it. Everyone continued until late at night before dispersing. The next day, Yang Zhao notified everyone about the cultivation exchange meeting and prepared some gifts. Any cultivator who came on stage to share could get a souvenir. This souvenir was also very simple, just a bill of exchange. Xiaodaran excitedly went to choose a venue, and Yang Zhao Mayo started to contact Guo Fuminamum Kyang in the house. Yang Zhao, Master Shenroi informed me that we had started to rebuild the teleportation array. Yang Zhao, I can't refuse. Guo Fumin Kyang, now? So urgent? Yang Zhao, yes, I can delay it for 2 more months at most. I will go to Laoan City to manage our transaction with Shen Sishan, but once this is done, I will have no reason to delay it any longer. Guo Fumin Kyang, okay, I will report this to the higher-ups. Don't worry, we will resolve this matter properly. Guo Fumin Kyang, Mr. Shen must have his own plan for doing this. We understand and respect the decision of the old man. Yang Zhao's heart was relieved at once. In fact, she was quite afraid of being caught in the middle. But this also shows that Shenroi is right from another perspective. The right to choose whether to rebuild the teleportation array or not has never been in the hands of Yang Zhao and Guo Fumin Kyang, but in the hands of Shenroi and Master Gongsun. More precisely, it is only in the hands of Shenroi. Yang Zhao, sorry, I disrupted your plan. Guo Fuminamum Kyang, don't worry, our backup plans range from A to Z. You know that our country has a large population, and there are many people making plans. Yang Zhao, then let's do our best on both sides. Guo Fuminamum Kyang, come on. Yang Zhao didn't know which plan Guo Fuminamum Kyang would use. The cultivation exchange meeting on Black Pearl Island started on the 3rd day. Yang Zhao and her 7 giant unstage cultivators sat on the stage with her as the leader, and nearly 30 cultivators stood together. Thousands of little bean people surrounded the stands in a black mass, and the outermost was some children. Wang Shu took the stage as the host. He was the tallest on the island. He had gained some weight in the past month, and looked a bit more human. He spoke in a foreign language with an accent. For this exchange conference, Island Master Yang has prepared a little gift. Anyone who comes on stage to share their cultivation experience can get it. 100 teals for giant and stage cultivators, 30 teals for foundation building cultivators, and 10 teals for key training cultivators, and some extra money for tea. After saying this, the cultivators didn't do anything, but the children behind them all exclaimed in surprise, covered their mouths with their hands, and looked at the cultivators standing in front with envy. Even the little bean people's eyes lit up. They were really too poor. Although they had no place to spend money. But having no place to spend money and having no money are two different concepts. At that moment, the little bean people shouted in Chinese below, "Can we go on stage?" "Yes, we don't want much, 1 or 2 teals of silver will do." Wang Shu stood on the stage and scolded in Chinese, "What are you thinking about? Have you opened your meridians and spirits? You dare to share your experience without practicing, and you are not afraid of corrupting the children. If you have the leisure time, you might as well listen carefully. It will be difficult to encounter such good things in the future." Chapter 469. The conference ends. Wang Shu was still talking and trying to delay time by being the host. After a while, several flying boats came from a distance, and nearly 100 people came down from them. Wang Shu breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. Finally, the people he was waiting for arrived. These dozens of people were not the others' official ones. The supervisors and them selected workers and children in various towns. Among these people, only the supervisors and their children had truly opened their meridians and awakened their spirits, and the rest were just literate. Those who could read would record the entire meeting and read it to the workers and children in each town after returning to the town. This was also a benefit that Yang Zhao gave to these workers. Yang Zhao naturally gave the first lecture of the cultivation sharing meeting. She had just practiced for a year, so what kind of cultivation experience could she have? Naturally, she talked about the tribulation. From the heart demon tribulation in the foundation building stage to the heart demon tribulation and thunder tribulation in the later golden elixir stage. She carefully described the causes of the heart demon tribulation she guessed, and the solutions at that time. She even briefly described the role of the lightning rod in the thunder tribulation. The whole venue of more than 3,000 people was silent. No one interrupted. Everyone took a pen and paper to write and draw. Yang Zhao's experience of overcoming tribulations may be child's play for Chinden. But for those cultivators who have not yet established their foundation and formed Dan, it is a rare experience. Wang Shu wore a loose suit today. There was a small hole on the front of the chest. The camera of the mobile phone was behind the hole. He recorded the best video in the best position. The second person was Emolin. This big octopus has grown 6 small tentacles and its IQ has recovered by half. He talked about the experience of controlling water. As a sea creature, he has unique experience and perception in controlling water. Yang Zhao was the third person. She talked about alchemy, but her experience of alchemy was a little different from others. Others talked about successful experience, but she talked about failure cases, and there were many failure cases. She didn't finish talking for more than an hour. The people below didn't have enough paper to copy, so Li Baining and Zhu Lan began to take advantage of the gaps between the cultivators on the stage, and ran to the more than 20 cultivators to sell their pencils and notebooks. Half a teal of silver could be bought from them. 10 oil pens and 2 60-page notebooks. They were so mean. But even so, they still had the nerve to say that they were focusing on quality and low prices. These things were received in cash yesterday. There are many experimental projects on the island that require paper and pens to record experimental records. Guo Fu Minimum Kiang shipped 2 tons of paper and pens at one time, and Yang Zhao dispersed them to warehouses in various towns on Black Pearl Island. If the national team wants to use it, they usually apply to the responsible Xiao Dao people, and the management is not strict. Xiao Dao people who are not on the national team can also apply, but the prerequisite for the application is that you have an experimental topic. Yang Zhao's fans are non-national team members. It can be to record the birds coming and going, or to record a plant. Generally, if you give a topic, the management of paper and pens will approve it. As for the false claim, there really is none. The main reason is that everyone is together every day, and they may cultivate together in the future. No one wants to expose their stingy and greedy side to the public. The most important thing is that they don't want to give Yang Zhao a bad impression. These papers and pens can also be taken out, and the price is 3 times the original price. You can pay in RMB. If you want to buy at the original price, you can use the silver from the other world. 1 TL of silver can buy a sack of notebooks. However, this business is not good. It should be said that it has not opened until today. Because it is expensive, because the only non-national team members on Black Pearl Island are Yang Zhao's fans, and the number accounts for less than 1/30 of the total. Among the more than 100 people, there are not even 2 who actively apply, not to mention that they pay for it. They are more willing to help the national team and earn some work points. Li Baining and his team took advantage of the sudden opening of this exchange conference. Black Pearl Island is short of supplies. These cultivators must not be fully prepared in a short time, so they are willing to do such a deal. The main purpose is to earn a sum of silver from the other world, to facilitate their future cultivation. This idea was proposed by Zilin. She has now returned to high school, and has used up a lot of pen refills. Unexpectedly, this business is really good. All the cultivators present, regardless of whether they have enough paper and pens, spent money to buy some more just in case, which really made Li Baining and his group a small profit. This conference lasted for 2 days. There were no more than 50 cultivators on the entire island, but most of them were in the key refining stage. Even most of the managers on the island were only in the stage of opening meridians and awakening spirits. In the end, only 20 people came on stage. At the end of the conference, Yang Zhao took advantage of the presence of all the cultivators and managers on the island to announce that he was going to leave the island, and formally brought Wang Shu to the stage and announced that he would act as the island owner. Afterwards, Yang Zhao invited several Xiaodao people who assisted her in managing the affairs of the island to the stage and formally introduced them, which was considered a formal transfer of power. No matter what the people below thought, Yang Zhao confirmed Wang Shu's legitimate status. In the next 2 days, Yang Zhao personally took Wang Shu around the island to confirm his legal status on the island again. After finishing this matter, another day, Yang Zhao sorted out the accounts on the island in front of the various supervisors and the Xiaodao people and handed them over. He also divided half of the more than 800 newly picked open vein leaves and shipped them to Guo Fuminqiang. Because after the pirates, there were many dead sea beasts in the nearby seas, the spiritual power of each sea field was relatively strong, and the open vein leaves were a little more mature. This half of the open vein leaves has not been completely drained of water, and it is a semi-finished product and cannot be used yet. The reason for giving it to Guo Fuminqiang is to observe the subsequent condition of this newly picked open vein leaves in Chix and Shenzhou. It is a batch of expensive experimental products. After handling everything properly, Yang Zhao followed Shen Roi across the vast ocean and came to Leiyuan Prefecture. This time, Yang Zhao took nearly 2,000 Xiaodao people and Xiaokao Chindan from Hizhu Island. This mountain city is lush and green in the late summer season. Yang Zhao followed Shen Roi to visit Leiyuan Mansion Lord first and talked to him in detail about the two people's plan to rebuild the Yunyang Temple's teleportation array and guaranteed that all the magic materials for constructing the array would pass through Kangcheng. Last year, half of the Fang family's property was paid to Yunyang Temple as compensation to rebuild the teleportation array, which was a great fortune for a small place like Kangcheng. This money can only be spent in Kangcheng to promote the local economy of Kangcheng. Otherwise, it is better to manage it now than to be an official now. The Kangcheng government has many ways to make Yang Zhao regret it. Chapter 470. Lord Leiyuan was very friendly to Yang Zhao's visit this time. During the visit, he directly called Yang Zhao his nephew and told Shen Roi more than once that Yunyang Temple had a successor. However, he avoided the question of rebuilding the teleportation array, as if there was something that was not communicated well. Yang Zhao didn't understand and glanced at Shen Roi from time to time. Shen Roi understood the key. Lord, please speak up if you have any doubts. I haven't paid attention to the outside world for nearly 200 years, and now I know very little about the court's policies. I hope you can give me some advice. Lord Leiyuan looked at Shen Roi embarrassedly and finally said hi. Alas, in fact, it is not that I intend to embarrass fellow Daoist Shen, but half a month ago, there was a riot in the Windbrush realm, and a large number of ferocious beasts overflowed from the Windbrush realm. Fellow Daoist Shen, you should also know that the Windbrush realm is not far from the Great Zhao, and traces of feathered ferocious beasts have been found in some places. Therefore, the court issued a summons, and all cities have the responsibility to defend their territory, and the forces with the teleportation array that connects to the outside are also the same. Shenroi also understood it at this point. Kangcheng is originally a small city, and the military defense force in the city is not large. In this tense situation, if Yunayang Temple is harassed by ferocious beasts, it will be difficult to get support from the Kangcheng government. The various caravans and workers who built the array that were attracted by Yang Zhao's reconstruction of the teleportation array will also increase the defense burden of Kangcheng. Faced with such sudden events that may cause casualties and property losses, the rulers all want to maintain stability. Shenroi smiled indifferently and waved to Yang Zhao. Take out the tooth of your senior kin and show it to Lord Fusion. Senior kin. Yang Zhao blinked, then suddenly reacted and took out the tooth that the old shark surnamed Kin gave to Yang Zhao for protection when she first went to Black Pearl Island from the Kyankan bag in his arms, stood up and respectfully handed it to Lord Fusion Leohan with both hands. Before this little tooth reached Lord Fusion Leohan's hands, he knew what it was. Fellow Daoist Shen, what is this? Shenroi, my old friend will come to live in my Yunayang temple in the near future. As for the caravan, my Yunayang temple will spend more money to hire a few giant unstage cultivators to come to Kangcheng and obey the city lord's dispatch. This is a rich and powerful look. Lord Fusion Leohan smiled and returned the tooth to Yang Zhao. It's not easy to find a giant unstage cultivator nowadays, but since your old friend will go to Yunayang temple, fellow Daoist Shen must discuss the matter of moving the formation with the Lord of Kangcheng. In other words, Lord Leohan can turn a blind eye to this matter. When Yang Zhao and the others came out of the government office in the prefecture, Yang Zhao couldn't wait to ask about the matter of Fengfu realm. Shenroi raised his head and pointed at the giant star in the sky that bullied the sun in the sky. The Fengfu realm is behind that star. Although it can breed living beings, all the living beings in it have no intelligence. The struggle between living beings is extremely fierce. Many fierce beasts have better cultivation qualifications than those in other places. But even so, every once in a while, the fierce beasts in the Fengfu realm will riot due to food shortages and other reasons. Every time that happens, the fierce beasts in it will flee in all directions, and as I is the closest to it, so it is the most easily invaded place. As he spoke, Shenroi's eyes were filled with understanding again. Several waves of Feather Tribe came to Xianfu a few days ago, at least several thousand of them. Do you remember why they went to Xianfu? Yang Zhao answered without thinking. For the spiritual vein water. Shenroi smiled slightly. I guess they were also affected by the riot in Fengfu realm. This made Yang Zhao confused, and he suddenly remembered the big hole on Lu Sheng's chest. Could it be that Lu Sheng and his people ran to Xianfu for refuge because their own territory could not guarantee safety? The Lu Sheng you mentioned was looking for a backer, but the other feather tribes were not. They really wanted to gain some benefits from the riot in Fengfu realm. Shenroi put his hands behind his back and walked slowly along the roadside. Let me ask you, what is the specific difference between beasts and monsters? This question cannot stump Yang Zhao. Monsters are the upgraded version of beasts plus. Shenroi paused. Answer my question well. Yang Zhao chuckled. Beasts become demons through cultivation. Beasts are equivalent to infants who cannot cultivate, and demons are us cultivators. Not entirely. In fact, the most important thing for demons is to understand human nature, and the most important step for a beast to become a demon is to open its spiritual wisdom. The street next to the government office was very busy, and the hawking noises made Shenroi's voice a little weak. If you want to hear it clearly, you have to concentrate. The reason why those feather tribes went to Xianfu to seek spiritual vein water these days is that in addition to leaving some for their own young people, most of the rest is probably for the feather tribes in the Fengfu realm. Why? The thing is quite rare. Those feather tribes can't give it to others for no reason, right? Yang Zhao's eyes widened. Although the spiritual vein water is a bit disgusting, no one can deny that it is a good thing. Then how can you know that the feather tribe of the Great Zhao does not have the blood of the feather tribe of the wind brushing realm? Moreover, if someone opens the spiritual wisdom of the beast, it is a great favor. If this monster does not repay the favor, it will definitely be self-awareness. Yang Zhao's foggy mind became a little clearer. It turns out that the feather tribe went to ask for the Lingman water in order to increase the force value of the tribe. It is estimated that only the purpose of Lu Sheng's tribe going to Xianfu is the most simple. At night, Yang Zhao crouched on the bed in the inn and continued to edit her video. This video was recorded by Wang Shu. Maybe because it was the first time to do this kind of work, she had no experience. Compared with an old hand like Yang Zhao, the pictures taken were strange. Either the person preaching on the stage had half of his face left, or the whole picture was crooked, and the sound was far and near. For the sake of his fans' eyes, Yang Zhao could only edit this 2-day-long video in detail, cutting it into a small video for each person, and adding Chinese text to avoid many cute alien languages not meeting the standards. As for Guofuming Qiang, Yang Zhao directly threw the original video over. In this matter, fans are his little cuties, and Guofuming Qiang is Yang Zhao's hated coworkers. The next morning, Shen Roi returned to Kangcheng alone. After seeing off his master, Yang Zhao went to see Shen Sishan with 2 bags of gifts. One of the conditions for Shen Sishan to help Yang Zhao invite Dr. Luan Chuangshan was that Yang Zhao had to stay in Leihuan Prefecture for 2 months to ensure the flow of goods. Chapter 471. An office in a certain base. Because Shen Roi decided to build the teleportation formation in advance, all departments, bases, and military regions have been busy these days. There are meetings every day, big and small, and even researchers who only focus on experiments every day cannot avoid them. Perhaps it is not to avoid them, but they are trying their best to squeeze into the meeting, hoping to get more benefits for their departments, laboratories, and military regions in this big change. Crisis is crisis, and there are opportunities and danger. People's eyes are sharp. This is a multi-threaded network meeting, and there are more than 100 live broadcast screens on the big screen in the office. Behind the live broadcast screen are hundreds of participants in various clothes. Whenever someone stands up to express his opinion, the big screen will enlarge his live broadcast room. At this time, the person who stood up to report is giving a summary. As of yesterday, we have admitted a total of 1,321 seriously ill children of various types, of which 769 were able to go directly to the operating table for the next treatment after their pulses were open. 313 children were able to recover after a maximum of 2 months of treatment after their pulses were opened. 233 children with immune system diseases were cured within 10 days, and the remaining 6 only had a little increase in their body's immunity, but the disease still troubled them. After the first child's pulse was opened, and the operation was successful, the second and third children's families came to ask for help within a few days. These parents who have no way to go to heaven, and no way to go to the earth can always be the first to perceive the good news about their children's condition. Within a month, the rumor that the country has a special way to improve the physical fitness of young children has entered the ears of the children's families in the form of urban legends. More people began to peek at the glimmer of hope through various methods. The rich spent money, some begged people, and the busy parents went directly to the National Medical Security Bureau in Beijing, humbly begging every staff member to fight for a glimmer of hope for their children to live. A total of 375 healthy children have had their pulses opened successfully. In summary, the success rate of opening pulses for children under 1 week old is 100%, which is not at the same level as the risk faced by adults. Putting aside the issue of the reserve of opening pulses, we propose to set up a designated area for opening pulses for children under 1 week old. When conditions are ripe, we will promote it nationwide. After he finished his report, he put down the paper and stood there waiting for others to ask questions about his report. Sure enough, someone raised his hand before he waited for a while. The first group of cultivation, group leader, I want to become a disciple. At ALL staff, there are new actions from above. Group leader, I want to become a disciple. All the generals in the group, come out and take a look. Is there anything we can use here? Cultivation newbie, forgive my poor eyesight, I don't understand what this means. The little fish who loves plants, I don't quite understand this official language, but this is a medical matter. At CHENGY studies medicine, can you explain it to us? Chengai studies medicine, there is only one point above. After nearly a year of experiments, the country has approved an acupuncture technology that can improve the immunity and physical fitness of children under 1 year old. Chengai studies medicine, I guess this is what we know about opening meridians and awakening spirits. As for where we can get the benefits, it is to get married and have children quickly. While this news has not been widely circulated, and the people still have doubts about this matter, shy or thunderclap woke up the people who were being urged to get married and were lurking in the group. The little fish who loves plants. Oh my god, I escaped my parents urging to get married, but I couldn't escape the country's urging to get married. The Nubian cultivation app. I get a headache when I hear about marriage. I earn my own money and spend it myself. I can eat when I'm hungry, and I have medical insurance when I'm sick. Is the game not fun? Why do I have to find a girlfriend to get married? The group leader, I want to become your disciple. This is a national welfare now. Are you sure you don't want it? You know, although we all think that we are the protagonists of this world, maybe your child's talent for cultivation is better than yours. Stealing the sky and changing the day. Well, it's easy for me to get married now because marriage gives credits, but it's too difficult for you to find someone who is willing to have a baby for me now. I may not be able to enjoy this benefit. The former king's order. At The little fish who loves plants. This is not about getting married, but about having a baby. Do you understand? The former king's order. I have stored the cultivation experience updated by the blogger in the past few days on the blockchain. If anything happens, you can decrypt it through the private key. I have put the private key in the group file. Please remember it. Group leader. I want to become his disciple. Is as rich and powerful as ever. I admire you. Others didn't know where this wealth came from, so they all went to search the website. After searching, they all began to thank the rich man and said they would share part of the cost. Now the people in the group are not poor. Maybe everyone is not rich, but everyone has some money. It doesn't make sense to let the former king pay alone. If you want to take advantage of this, you will end up owing a favor. Now for people in the first group of cultivation, favors are much more valuable than money. Cheng Yi studied medicine. Group friends. Due to some work reasons, I don't think I will have much time to chat in the group in the future. His words were incoherent, but based on previous experience, Cheng Yi's medical studies may be used for public purposes. The people in the group suddenly became quiet. No one dared to ask more questions, for fear that, if they said more, the group would be blocked, and someone might knock on their door to check the water meter and ask them to drink tea. It was the group leader who first said congratulations, and then all the group members copied and pasted it. But this time, the first label of Cheng Yi Zuyi was dimmed. From then on, Cheng Yi Zuyi also became a legend in the first group of immortal cultivation. Chapter 472. Time always passes quickly when nothing is done. In the 2 months in Leoan City, after getting the permission of the lord of the house, Yang Zhao dispersed all the little bean people in his hands. In addition to wandering around Leoan City for a few days, when they first arrived, they also let the residents of Leoan City experience what it means to be a monkey that can only quack and a fool who will kneel down to worship at any time. Because Leoan City is surrounded by mountains and has dangerous terrain, there are several little bean people who go to jump off the cliff every day. Every night, there are fewer little bean people when they come back. With the trade and transportation between Shenzhen and Guofengqiang, the problems of traffic congestion and shortage of manpower in the city have been exposed one after another, and these little bean people have also seen business opportunities in them. The little bean people with more business acumen don't know how it works. Anyway, relying on Yang Zhao, a giant and period cultivator, they somehow set up a small business. Busy from morning to night every day, a pair of legs are moving fast on the street. Every 2 days, a small stall becomes 2 small stalls and 3 small stalls. As the number of stalls increased, Some of the little bean people who had no business sense and could not do the job of welcoming and seeing off people began to lose money and could not do it in 2 days. These little animals saw that they could not do it, so they began to change their careers and work. In addition to working for the little bean people who were doing business to earn some copper coins and silver, most of them began to look for jobs throughout Leoan Prefecture. The little bean people who did not find a proper job began to recommend themselves as delivery men. In the past 2 months, there was a traffic jam near the Leoan Prefecture city teleportation array, and people were stuck here and could not move. Even if the nearby restaurants booked the house, they could not make so many meals to supply so many people. With more people, the quality and taste of the food naturally declined. Other restaurants also wanted to push their cars in to attract business, but they couldn't. There were too many cars, too many animals, and too many people. There was no way to transport vegetables, food, firewood and other cooking necessities. Generally, they were stuck in the middle of the journey and could not move. Moreover, setting up stalls also occupied the road, which would make the streets more congested. There weren't many people who could actually set up food stalls, and they were busy all day. At this time, the Xiao Dao people took action. They found the restaurants in the remote areas of Leoan City and cooperated with them. The Xiao Dao people asked the restaurant to only cook 3 dishes a day and prepare the ingredients for these 3 or 4 dishes every day. The next step was to wait. The Xiao Dao people would be divided into 2 groups. One group would wait in the store, and the other group would carry a small flag on their backs and put it on their heads with the restaurant's signature dishes written on it. They would hang a row of small circles cut from plastic tubes collected from Yang Zhao on their hands and a simple conduction instrument on their chests. This conduction instrument has 2 types, the molecular and the mother. The molecular instruments are given to the Xiao Dao people, and the mother instruments are in the hands of the store owners. Next, they would take advantage of their short stature to shuttle back and forth between the crowds and cars and start recommending meals to people from car to car. They would reserve all these meals before noon. As long as someone ordered a meal from the Xiao Dao people, they would scratch the corresponding position of the conducting instrument with a hard object, and at the same time, the mother instrument in the store owner's hand would also show this scratch. The store owner began to cook according to the quantity, and the little bean people in the store did miscellaneous work. Whether it was washing vegetables, cutting meat, or packing and transporting, it was their job. At first, these store owners did not dare to let these little bean people wander around in their kitchens. But when a few little bean people showed them a nice skill, these store owners began to smile. Most of the little bean people recruited by Yang this time were soldiers. They could not cook that night, so they asked the cooks to start training. Most of the research talents were in Black Pearl Island. Yang Zhao did not control the actions of the little bean people too much. Only when she let these ducks out every day would she remind them not to do anything illegal every day. She did not intervene much in the rest. She was not the parents of these little bean people, so she did not need to manage everything. Moreover, in the past 2 months, the little bean people and the indigenous residents got along quite well. On the one hand, because of the traffic jam, almost all residents knew that these little bean people were doing business with SYNOPSIS. Because of the business, the government also took care of the little bean people. On the other hand, the traffic jam in the city also meant that the whole city was working hard to make money. Everything was looking forward. Except for those who were competing with the little bean people for business, no one cared about these little dwarfs. The little bean people's business was developing in full swing. Yang Zhao felt bored in the past 2 months. In addition to practicing and taking medicine, she had to guard the teleportation array every day and was trapped here by an invisible rope. It was precisely because of boredom that Yang Zhao had the mind and time to observe the transaction between Jiuo Fumin Qiang and Shen Sishan. The bulk of the transaction between Jiuo Fumin Qiang and Shen Sishan was tons of refined metals. Among these metals, there were pure silver, black, and mixed red and silver. But no matter what kind of metal it was, each one exposed to the sun showed the world the message "I'm very expensive." Another major transaction is plastics. Yang Zhao actually doesn't understand this kind of transaction. She always thought that the 2 sides should be dealing with high-tech, high-level cultivation and other high-end things. Exporting metal plastics really surprised Yang Zhao. Because this is exactly what this cultivation world needs. Facing Yang Zhao's doubts, the businessman man with Shen Sishan gave an answer. Don't you feel that the development of the great Zhao cultivation technology has nothing to do with the masses below? That is to say, most of the people cannot enjoy the dividends brought by cultivation, which is a phenomenon that is very inconsistent with social evolution. Cultivating immortality and various spells, isn't it a dividend? You know, after cultivating, the body will be healthier and will rarely get sick. This alone is something that many ordinary people can't even ask for. Isn't this a dividend? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 473, The World of Cultivation. Facing Yang Zhao's question, Xiaodaran looked at the crowded crowd, but his words were particularly cold. Look at the people driving the beasts and carts to transport goods. Have they enjoyed this bonus? This bonus of good health costs 10 taels of silver. It's good enough for a newborn and the whole village to enjoy it. In the entire Great Zhao Court, 99.9% of the people can't enjoy this benefit. This benefit is more like a carrot hanging in front of a donkey, visible but intangible. Yang Zhao felt that Xiaodaran's statement was a bit too pessimistic. It's not that serious, right? There are so many cultivators, and there are tens of thousands of people who take exams for various levels of institutions every year. But among these tens of thousands, how many are sons of common people, and how many are sons of farmers? Yang Zhao opened her mouth and said nothing. After all, she really didn't study the composition of the great Zhao cultivators, and she didn't observe them specifically. Without investigation and research, there is no right to speak. Then Comrade Zhang, why are you more interested in this thing? For Yang Zhao, what interested him in the world of cultivation was of course various magic weapons, elixirs, fierce beasts, and even unknown enemies. The world of cultivation is colorful. Who would focus on boring class research? Well, after all, after the cultivation system is introduced into our country, we don't know what kind of impact it will have on the people's livelihood, so we can only cross the river by feeling the way of Dazhao. Didn't we cross the river by feeling the way of Yingjiang before? Now it's Dazhao. But I think Dazhao has a very peaceful experience. The whole planet belongs to them. There is no war, and there is a great temptation to become an immortal here. Although it is not easy to open the meridians, a family can save up for a few years and let their children practice cultivation. This is considered a change of family lintel. Did you bring the prefectural school examination into our college entrance examination? When Xiao Dao heard this, if he was not of good quality, he would almost roll his eyes. Can their performance compare to our college entrance examination? The requirements for the provincial school examination are to open the meridians and awaken the spirit, but it is good if one child out of 100 succeeds in opening the meridians, but awakening the spirit is another matter. Don't treat every child of ordinary people as you. For you, opening the meridians is equivalent to stepping into the path of cultivation, but for these children, there is no subsequent awakening of the spirit. Opening the meridians is just to strengthen the body, and it costs 10 taels of silver. For poorer families, it is not a cost-effective deal at all. Yang Zhao lowered his head and thought for a while, thinking of his own experience when opening the meridians. Opening the meridians requires a pulse map, which ordinary people don't have. Without a pulse map, the people in the pulse opening hall can only open 3 meridians for people. It is easier to open the meridians for young children. When a child grows up, he needs to know the detailed description of an ancestor who has ascended to the throne of God, and this God is willing to respond to you before you can open the meridians successfully. This is just opening the meridians, and awakening the spirit is another matter. In fact, awakening the spirit is the first round of cultivation, leading the spiritual energy into the body. The cultivation method is firmly in the hands of the court, but Yang Zhao had been to relatively few places. He had only seen the provincial schools for young people, and had not seen any places for early childhood education. What kind of impact would this incident have on the entire society? No, I'm off topic, right? Yang Zhao suddenly came to his senses. I'm not wondering about the social structure, but why the bulk of the commodities we trade are mostly these metals and plastics. The little bean man named Zhang was suddenly amused. He was just chatting and talking nonsense, but he did not expect Yang Zhao to turn the topic back. Most people would have long forgotten what they wanted to ask. Because cultivation can improve personal martial arts too much, cultivation can greatly improve personal martial arts and scientific research capabilities. The little bean man took out a pen and paper from the table behind him and drew a simple diagram for Yang Zhao. This makes cultivators inevitably become the privileged class of the entire Great Zhao court. This privilege has led to most of the means of production in the entire world of cultivation revolving around these people. He tapped a few dots on the diagram to act as cultivators. Originally, there was such a privileged class, and all kinds of means of production could be delegated to the lower class people. Whether it was feudal court or capitalism, there would be a middle class in society. Whether it was the petty bourgeoisie, the urban class or the working class, society needed a large amount of labor to produce enough materials to support the upper class. Therefore, any development in science and technology would be delegated to the lower class, so that the people of the lower class could enjoy the dividends. This situation is inevitable, because manpower is limited. The more people there are, the more things can be done, and the greater the benefits obtained. The little bean man drew a big circle around the small black dots. But the world of cultivation doesn't need that. The science of the world of cultivation is already able to perform space jumps, and they also have spaceships. Logically, this requires a lot of manpower and material resources to support it. But have you seen the working class here? Cultivators are too versatile and all-powerful. A job that requires 100 of us can be done by just one of them. This has led to a lot of means of production being in the hands of the cultivation families. They don't even need to recruit workers outside, as their own people are enough. In this way, technology will not become simplified and convenient. Many machines in our society pursue foolproof startup, and we strive to ensure that people who have read a few years of books can start the machines, so that more people can participate in the middle class of productive labor, and obtain their own benefits through labor. The little bean man drew a pyramid-shaped scientific radiation structure. But the cultivation world doesn't need it. The cultivators are too versatile. They don't need the help of the lower class people, and they naturally won't give the cultivation bonus to the lower class people. Even because of the force value, these lower class people in the cultivation world can't even resist. If there is no character cultivation genius in their family, they can't turn over in another 1,000 years. Although this topic was dragged away by the rigid little bean man, Yang Zhao still smelled the bloody smell of the cultivation world from these words. So now there are no large-scale metal smelting factories in the cultivation world. Just like Kangcheng has many workshops, such as Shandafang, but there are really few workers in them. For example, in China, even if an automobile company is highly automated, it must have at least tens of thousands of workers, and some car companies even have more than 200,000 or 300,000 workers. Not to mention the semiconductor industry, chip industry, and smelting industry. If the industrial chain of spacecraft is placed in Shenzhou, it will definitely create 1 million jobs in China. Thinking of this, Yang Zhao also felt a little cold on his back. No one opposed this matter in Dazhou, because the lower class people could not oppose it. But this won't work in the red country of China, and it won't work on Earth. If this matter is not resolved well, the Third World War will start immediately, without any hesitation. Although the Great Zhao Court has tried its best to pull in the lower class people, it can only pull a small number of lower class people into the cultivation system, not the production system. This is an unsolvable problem in the cultivation world. The little bean man named Zhang put down the pen and looked at the messy images drawn on it. We want a smooth transition, and we can only cross the river by feeling the way through the Great Zhao. 2 months passed in a flash, and the Laoan city, which was once crowded, seemed a little deserted. After returning to peace, Yang Zhao took the little bean man to check the accounts with Shenzhen's people for a few days. Holding a cup of iced milk tea, Yang Zhao always felt a subtle sense of guilt when he sat in the room watching others busy with their feet hitting their heads. The day before leaving, Yang Zhao collected all the little bean men back and counted them, and found that there were 50 people missing. Not bad, the loss is about the same as we estimated. Yang Zhao was puzzled. How did these 50 people disappear? Did they steal other people's business and get beaten into pieces by others? Where? Although there are such cases, they are not many. Most of the little beam people were trampled to death. Some were people, some were beasts, and some were cars. At this point, the little beam man surnamed Zhang did not forget to complain. The height of the little beam people is really too short. It is not easy for so many of them to survive. How can I say this? This is hard to comment. Yang Zhao put away all the little bean people and felt that she should buy some more Kyanji beans to carry with her as a guarantee. She went to the market to buy a circle of Kame leaves and Kyanji beans, and then took the gifts to say goodbye to Leo and Fusion and Shen Sishan, and finally took a big bird in the city to fly back to Kangcheng. Who wants to fly by themselves when you can take a taxi? Anyway, Yang Zhao doesn't have this habit. Not long after leaving the city, Yang Zhao rarely discovered a fight between humans and beasts. Yang Zhao couldn't help but pat the bird's feet and landed on a hill not far away, wanting to see the excitement. But she didn't expect that when she landed, she found that there were quite a lot of people watching the excitement below. This is a basic argument for the development of chicks and Shenzhou in the future. In other words, it feels difficult to control, and this should be dispersed to have a better story. Chapter 474, Soul Taming Team. Yang Zhao watched from the top of the hill below for a while. The people and beasts fighting above were not very skilled. The strongest one was the fierce beast, whose cultivation was in the late stage of foundation building. He learned from other people who were watching the excitement that the battle group of people and beasts fighting in the sky was chasing a fierce beast that wandered over from the wind-blowing realm. The fierce beast in the sky was more than 2 meters tall at the shoulder and 4 meters long. It was covered with yellow and black fur, had 4 claws, and a long tail, a long jaw, short ears, and a mouth full of sharp fangs. It looked a bit like a wolf. Moreover, this fierce beast was agile and fierce. Its sharp claws flashed with cold light. Low-level magic weapons could be torn apart with one claw. Its tail was like a steel whip. If you were not careful, you would break your bones and tendons immediately. The most important thing was that it was still surrounded by a layer of yellow mist. This mist circulated around it, and all the small magic weapons and spells were blocked by this mist. There were 5 cultivators who surrounded the beast. Some had wings and some had tails. Although their cultivation was lower than that of the beast, they cooperated well with each other and had a good method in their advance and retreat. They were obviously teammates who often played together. No matter how high the beast's cultivation was, it was still a single beast with low intelligence. Not long after Yang Zhao descended to watch the fun, the layer of defensive mist on its body had been removed piece by piece. As the mist thinned, countless blood marks appeared on the beast's body in just a few blinks of an eye. Seeing that the 5 people were about to kill it, Yang Zhao couldn't help but shout, "Fellow Taoists above, can you sell this beast to me alive? I'll give you 1,000 taels, how about that?" Originally, the 5 people besieging the beast in the sky didn't care much when they heard someone talking, but they didn't say anything about the 1,000 taels of silver, but they slowed down their movements. This made the little coyote breathe a sigh of relief. The cultivator on the same hill as Yang Zhao was kind-hearted and could not bear to see her suffer. He moved 2 steps to the side of Yang Zhao and whispered to himself without looking at her, "It's good to sell this little coyote for 300 taels of silver. Don't be fooled by its majestic appearance and good cultivation. In fact, there is nothing on it that can be sold at a high price." He was afraid that, if he spoke too loudly, he would offend the 5 people in the sky. Yang Zhao knew that this person was kind-hearted, so he thanked him softly without looking at him. "The young people in my family are short-sighted. I will buy one to open their eyes." Before she finished speaking, a little girl flew over from a hill in the west. The girl looked about 14 or 15 years old, with a round face with a little baby fat, a pair of round eyes, and a light blue dress. When she approached Yang Zhao, she raised her hand to salute. "Dao I are polite. I just heard that you want to buy the coyote beast in the sky." Yang Zhao returned a salute. "That's right, little Taoist friend. You and those guys in the sky are teammates. The little girl looked a little shy when she heard Yang Zhao call her little Taoist friend. That's right, the one in grey clothes above is my brother. I'm his sister. I'm the sentinel of the spirit taming team. If you really want to buy one, you can tell me. Before this kind of team goes out, one person will be assigned to be a sentinel. His role is to warn teammates and remind passers-by not to intervene when the whole team is doing business. For teams with more people, there are also visible and hidden sentries to ensure the safety of teammates. Yang Zhao thought the little girl was cute and didn't make things difficult for her. I do want to buy it, but it can't be dead, nor can it be too badly injured. I want it to be alive, so I can take it back. I can pay 1,002 taels of silver. The little girl smiled and said, if you really want to, then wait a little while. Wait for my brothers to catch this murderer and bring him down to show you how good it is. Yang Zhao nodded. Okay, then I'll wait here for a while, but I've said that if this beast dies, I won't want it. Don't worry, our training team is experienced in this area, and we will definitely let this coyote beast be healthy in your hands. As she said that, the little girl took out a whistle-like thing from her arms and put it to her mouth and blew it hard. Although she blew it hard, the whistle didn't make any sound. Yang Zhao couldn't help but think a little bit. Could it be that the whistle she blew was still infrasound? After the little girl finished blowing, the battle group above changed again. 2 of the 5 people who had besieged the coyote beast changed their weapons and took out ropes to join the battle. The weapons and spells in the hands of the rest of the people no longer focused on the coyote and attacked its fatal parts. They began to cooperate and play with the coyote beast like a bullfight, consuming its spiritual power and physical strength. In this way, the 5 people fought against the coyote beast for half an incense stick of time. The coyote beast was panting with exhaustion, and the small wounds on its body could not be suppressed this time. As long as it moved a lot, blood would flow out. Finally, the coyote beast froze in the sky, and the 5 people caught the floor at once. The rope magic weapon was thrown high into the air, turned into a big net, and trapped the coyote beast. The coyote beast tore and howled inside, and could not get rid of the spots. The little girl who was accompanying Yang Zhao jumped down, and began to shout, "Brother, this way, our god of wealth is here." Chapter 475. Jua, how can you talk like that? Apologize to your friend. A big man in grey clothes landed on the ground first, strode over and saluted Yang Zhao. Fellow Daoist, please forgive me. I'm young and ignorant. My behavior is vulgar and offends you. I hope you can bear with me. The man had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his smile showed a mouth full of white teeth. Before he finished speaking, the 4 people behind him also fell from the sky with the coyote beast in the net bag. Fellow Daoist, please bear with me. As for this coyote beast, we will give you a discount as a friend. Do you think it's okay? Yang Zhao smiled and saluted back. What kind of offense is this? I like people calling me the god of wealth. After comforting the big bird behind him, that was obviously a little angry, Yang Zhao casually pointed at the coyote beast that fell to the ground with its head drooping. What happened to this coyote? Did it bleed so much that it can't survive? Hearing her question, the others also turned their attention to the coyote beast that was trapped in the big net and fell to the ground. The coyote beast was no longer as brave as before. It was crying softly with its head and hair sticking with blood and dirt. It was so unconvinced and angry just now. Why are you so obedient now? A younger one walked over and kicked the coyote beast, but the coyote beast didn't react at all and continued to cry softly. No, this amount of blood won't kill it. Did one of you use too much force? The other 4 looked at each other and shook their heads to deny. Don't worry, fellow Taoist, since you want to buy a live one, we will never sell you a coyote beast that can't survive. The grey-clothed man comforted Yang Zhao. He walked over and circled around the coyote beast. There is really no fatal injury on the body. As he said this, he took out a small wooden stick from his arms and inserted it into a wound of the coyote beast. In just a moment, the small wooden stick grew a trembling green leaf. The grey-clothed man happily pulled out the small wooden stick and brought it to Yang Zhao in 3 or 2 steps. Look, it's okay. The coyote beast is still very strong. Yang Zhao didn't recognize this thing. Although the small wooden stick looked very cultivation style, she was fooled by those who sold resurrection grass when she was in school, so she didn't trust this thing too much. I'll go and take a look. She took 2 steps forward to the side of the huge beast, only to see that the coyote beast looked at Yang Zhao approaching in horror, and the wailing became more shrill and began to struggle. Be good, be quiet. Yang Zhao comforted softly and put his palm on the coyote beast's forehead. The coyote beast, which was struggling violently, actually calmed down under Yang Zhao's comfort. The grey-clothed man frowned all of a sudden. He looked around at his companions and received the same affirmative look. When these people looked at Yang Zhao again, their eyes were full of caution. Yang Zhao roughly felt the spiritual power in the coyote beast's body and confirmed the judgment of the grey-clothed man. She stood up and clapped her hands, looking at the people around her who all changed color, and asked with a smile, "Can you sell this coyote beast to me for 1,000 taels?" The 6 people looked at each other, and finally the grey-clothed man stood up. "Senior, you are joking. This coyote beast can't be sold for 1,000 taels of silver, even if it is skinned and boned. The market price of this coyote beast is only 300 taels. The government offers a reward of 200 taels for killing one." The man seemed a little nervous. "If you want this coyote beast, we will give you a 20% discount. How about it?" Yang Zhao laughed when he heard it. "How can I let you suffer a loss? I can't go back on my word." The grey-clothed man shook his hand honestly. "Hey senior, look at what you said. Your generosity doesn't mean we can ask for more. Wouldn't that be unscrupulous? How about this senior? Since you want it, we won't give you a discount. We'll just give you 500 taels. Otherwise, we won't feel comfortable keeping your money." Yang Zhao was silent for a while and nodded. "How about this? I'll pay an extra 100 taels, 600 taels of silver. How about you help me deliver this coyote beast alive to Kangcheng?" The 6 looked at each other and nodded. "Then it's up to you senior. If it's convenient, I'll take 2 brothers to deliver this coyote beast to you today." After both parties agreed, Yang Zhao paid half of the deposit, which was 300 taels of silver. Then the big bird took Yang Zhao up and continued to fly forward. The grey-clothed man and another foundation building cultivator followed behind her, dragging the net bag. When they arrived near Kangcheng, cultivators in official uniforms came forward to check. This was the first time Yang Zhao was checked outside the city. After he came here, he was a little surprised at the time. After the introduction of the cultivator from the government office, Yang Zhao learned that, because of the recent big moves in Kangcheng, the city's security work has become more stringent. And this coyote beast is too eye-catching. Yang Zhao had no choice but to sign a written contract to ensure that the coyote beast would not cause trouble in Kangcheng, on the premise of stating that he was a giant unstage cultivator, so that he could bring the coyote beast back. They landed at the foot of Xianan Mountain. Yang Zhao patted the big bird and let it go, then started climbing the mountain with the 2 people carrying the coyote beast. As soon as they entered Yunnan Temple, the 2 people put the coyote beast on the ground, and Yang Zhao happily paid the fake sound. "If you can catch the fierce beast in the future, if you don't mind the trouble, you can sell me 2 more. I will give you 100 taels of silver more than the market price. What do you think?" It's a great thing that the senior is willing to take care of our business. There is no reason not to. The grey-clothed man smiled innocently beside the coyote beast. "But senior, do you have any kind you like? We'll send it to you if we find something suitable." Yang Zhao shook his head. "I want expensive ones too. Cheap ones are fine. Big ones are fine. Small ones are fine. As long as they're not the kind that's hard to keep alive. I don't want a dead beast." Of course, of course." The grey-clothed man nodded repeatedly. "Don't worry, there have been many ferocious beasts running out of the wind-brushing realm recently. I'll send them to you in 2 days. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.